Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of brilliant battle action in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 12 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. You're catching up with all the action from the Superstar Split and here we are today taking a look back at all the racing action from round number 3 at the Autodromo Internazionale del Mugello. An Italian circuit that perhaps is seen to be in the shadows of its more well-known counterparts including the likes of Imola and Monza. It's a circuit located in central Italy that is not to be underestimated. At its core, 3.25 miles of length and the best part of 15 corners, and an annual host to race on 2 wheels as much as it is 4 wheels, having previously been conceived for the purposes of motorcycle racing, where it's become a staple of international GT racing calendars, including none other than the 12 Hours series, and that being a race around here for 12 hours in the infamous 12 Hours of Mugello sponsored by Michelin. And it's easy to understand why this circuit is so popular once you take it on for the first time. Sweeping bends, one incredibly long start for this straight, and an absolutely relentless front of corners does mean that this is a circuit that's all about consistency, but it also means that track position is absolutely vital. To do well here, you need to be coming out on top from the outset in qualifying, as otherwise you're going to have a difficult time trying to make up the places in the race, as whilst overtakes are theoretically possible, they do cost a lot of time and you've got to have a natural pace advantage lap after lap. Add to that, of course, a little bit of strategic variety, and you may just be able to undercut or overcut your rivals and come out on ahead should you not have got ahead of them with regards to your qualifying lap. But who exactly is going to be the Master of Mugello, and who's going to be able to sweep their way to victory today across our class of pro into a club? Well, that's what we're here to find out as we take a look back at all the race and action as if it were live from Thursday the 16th of April. Indeed, what you're tuning into today, this broadcast itself has been recorded as of none other than Tuesday the 21st of April, so we're taking a look at all the race and action. Indeed, we do not know in the commentary booth what happened either in the practice session, although it has just been completed, so we do know the outcomes of that, or the qualifying session is currently ongoing in the background, or most importantly, we do not know the outcome of the race, so therefore it's going to be as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this broadcast from circuit side as you tune in today on the one and only place you can catch up with all the racing action from our weekly racing series at SimRacing International, and of course on youtube.com, search for none other than SimRacing International SRI, and you can be tuning in there. And if you have not subscribed already, why not do so today, and that way you can stay up to date with all the latest racing as it gets underway, whether it be live or post-round. We always broadcast it, and therefore we're very happy to present to you these weekly broadcasts. But as we make our way into this round, where it's only appropriate we bring you up to speed with all the story coming out of round number 2, and in the commentary, of course, you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, and I shall be your commentator and host for this season. But without further ado, let's recap the story that brings us into Italy. And as we can see, taking a look back at our calendar, last time out on the 9th of April, we were in Belgium for everybody's favourite Belgian circuit, the one in the Ardennes Forest. It was none other than the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. But what exactly went down there in the Superstar Split? Well, what we got to see over the course of the 1 hour of racing is that mixed weather conditions definitely had their role to play. But what was the role of the rain? Well, practice and qualifying were absolutely dry. There was no rain in sight whatsoever, but the clouds gradually started to come over at the end of qualifying. So what it meant was, halfway into the race, we saw the rain arrive. And when it did, it forced everybody to transition from the slicks to the wet tyres. It played havoc with most drivers having major moments as they adapted to an increasingly wet circuit that seemed absolutely relentless in the amount of drama it would cause. And in the final 15 minutes, we saw some huge drama. Big names, including the likes of Justin Hembry and Ashley Coupland Bro, Carl Roy and Ross Young in Inter, and Philip Harrison Club all had major spills and spins, and suddenly it meant the field was completely turned upside down. So who exactly came out on top at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps? Well, in pro and overall to take the win, it was Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, or MTD as he's also known, but you wouldn't have believed it if we said he was going to win it, because he did take pole position by 2 attempts in qualifying over Justin Hembry in an otherwise extremely tight qualifying session, not just in pro but overall, with many a driver separated by hundreds and thousands rather than tenths. But when we did go racing, in the early stages, it was Milton Tomlinson-Dennis who ran away with proceedings in the dry, but when the rain arrived, he and his teammate Leon Seeley both made their way into the pit lane for Samantha Tan Racing, and he opted to take a longer pit stop in order to make some rear wing adjustments, something you are allowed to do in the pits with the GT3s. Indeed, you can also tweak, I do believe, the anti-roll bars and the front splitter settings, but it added an extra 10 seconds onto their pit stop, and we didn't realise it at the time. Neither did the Samantha Tan Racing team realise how much time it would cost them, but particularly for Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, it relegated him back to 4th place. But he charged through the field after that in the wet of a car that definitely was retuned to drive in the wet conditions, and he was able to take the win in the end despite a spin, as he then took the victory by 16.8 seconds there ahead of Corey Price. Meanwhile, in the interclass, it was Jared Love who made it 2 wins back-to-back, much like Milton Tomlinson-Dennis in Pro making it back-to-back wins. But for Love, it was a very interesting story in the fact that he missed out on class pole to Luke van Goertel by only half a tenth in qualifying, and he was forced to give up positions early on in the race to pro drivers. He also lost second in class early on to Brad Pickett, who was absolutely charging his way through the field in the dry. So when the rain arrived, what exactly changed? Well, Van Goertel started to struggle in the rain. He didn't quite have the setup on the car or the confidence in the car that he had in the dry, and meanwhile, Pickett really picked up the pace, as did Love. But Brad Pickett seemed to be set to take victory until a very late spin in the race cost him the win, and suddenly Jared Love, who made no mistakes over the distance, he was the cleanest driver when it came to the Inter top 3, he was able to just cleanly make his way to his second victory of the season. And in club class, well, how about this? Adam Lynch taking up the victory. And indeed, he seemed set for victory when he took pole position by 1700ths over Jordan Butler, and his opening lap was one to be in awe about. In the fact, he was able to make up several positions overall to further the gap to his club rivals, and he gave up some of those positions in the end to prioritise the club win, particularly when the rain arrived, but he was completely out of reach in wet conditions, although many will say, well, what about Ashley Chucksmith? Now, we have to give a mention to him of the fact that in the dry, he didn't really stand out. In the wet, he was lapping 2 seconds a lap quicker than anybody else, including Adam Lynch himself. And many would argue that if Ashley Chucksmith had not had a dismal qualifying session where he qualified quite far down the order, he would have been able to potentially change Lynch for the win. So therefore, Adam Lynch, we got it done in qualifying and made sure he gapped the field comfortably, so that way he was never under threat over the distance. But Chucksmith put on an absolutely incredible drive to come through the field in the late stages. So those were your winners and the big headlines from the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. But who exactly is going to be making the headlines today here at Mugello? Because we have a 1-hour race under sunny skies, although there's a degree of cloud in sight, but no rain at all. Well, that's what we're here to find out. And after this round, of course, we make our way to Japan in a week's time for the first of our visits to the Asian country. And, of course, that will be at the Fuji International Speedway. But coming into our round then, let's talk a little bit about our standings for today. And as we can see, after 2 rounds of racing, beginning with the Pro Championship standings top 12, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis leads the way for Samantha Tan Racing with 2 wins out of 2. Albeit, to be fair to him, he even admitted to me in a quick chat we had after the race, he didn't expect to be taking the victory at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Nobody did, to be fair, and that went to show just how topsy-turvy the entire day was. He was definitely targeting a podium as a minimum, but he was very happy to take that win, even if he did have a spin that wasn't called to the broadcast. But he's on 200 points to 140 of Raz Harper. Now, Harper's season opener with a 6th place at the Hockenheim Ring definitely didn't suit him, so he made it a podium last time out for DDK Racing Team, and he was much happier with that, I can tell you. He had a decent qualifying session, but absolutely came alive in the race, but he just missed out on that 2nd place with Corey Price making a move for on it on the final lap. Brandon Dyer sits in 3rd place and came so close to a podium over the course of the circuit to Spa-Francorchamps, but he lost out that 3rd place. He lost 4th as well on the final lap to Leon Seeley, and he'll be hoping today the Altitude 3M Esports rider he gets his lucky break as he sits in 3rd, only 12 points ahead of Nils Bukalga. We can see the NJB performance driver right now, a 10th last time out. It was not a day to be remembered, and therefore he'll be looking to put Spa-Francorchamps behind him rather quickly. Elliot Court sits in 5th there for DDK Racing Team on 108 points, and he's the best part there of 12 ahead of Joris Peters Veem. Then we do have Corey Price. He was very impressive to take that 2nd place in the wet after his dismal season opener, and therefore he'll be looking to pick up the pieces once again today and see if he can move even further forward. And as we do see there, what is Justin Hembry in 8th on 86 points. Well, the DNR Esports driver right now, 9. For Daniel Newman Racing, he's got a lot of work to do because it was a very frustrated day in the office at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. But we could also see there Leon Seeley in 9th on 80 points. And, well, after his absolutely horrendous season opener, well, he was able to bring up a top 5 in the previous round, and he'll be hoping now that that's going to set the ground for what's to come. Andy Jones is 4 points behind there for DCW Racing, ran off the top 10. And it's going to be Ben Woodgate, 11th place for Inter-Racing Team, ahead of Richard Simnor, completing your top 12 in the Pro Championship standings. To the Interclass we go, and when we do, we see Jared Love, 2 from 2, much like MTD in the Pro class. But Jared Love so far, he's not been the dominant driver necessarily, but he has been one of the most consistent drivers out there, and his clean approach to the racing is what has made the difference. But look to your right, Nicholas Carlson, 40 points behind, and the Beowulf Racing Team driver, he's now got a hot streak of podiums going, 2 third places back-to-back, and he was definitely quite special at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps Fredericks-Johns in the wet, he definitely came alive. Not to the degree of Ashley Shucksmith in the club class, but he definitely suddenly really reinvented his pace. And in that Mercedes right now, I get the feeling he's going to be continuing that run of podium state, if not taking his first win. Brad Pickett, well, he'll be absolutely fuming in the fact that Clarence St. James and Dexterous Motorsports driver could have had the win at Spa-Francorchamps until his late spin, as we mentioned earlier on, and therefore right now he has his first podium in his hands, but he's yet to take a win. On 144 points, he would love to do so, because Ville Kotonen is only 6 points behind, and the Finnish driver yet to really hit his stride, a 5th and a 4th. Well, mathematically, that means he must be taking a 3rd today. We'll see whether he keeps his numerical progression or whether he decides to disrupt it. Next, Carl Roy in 5th place, and after his podium, the season opener, it didn't quite work out last time out at Spa-Francorchamps, normally a wet weather expert, and it has proven to be his bane of his existence so far in this championship. And we see from the Corvette driver, it's then only a further 6 points to Adam Smith for Eurotitans Endurance. And right now, with a 4th and a 9th, he's had mixed fortunes. However, he'll be looking to get back on the straight and narrow today. Sam Hockley is 7th there, the privateer of Luke van Gertel by only 10 points. And it's Adrian Howard for Daniel Newman Racing sitting in 9th. We then do see Bobby Moss round off the top 10 for the SimRacing Collective Esports. Not on the grid of the season opener, so therefore he only has 1 score to his name so far. And then Ross Young and Steve Kershaw complete your top 12 in Inter. But then to the club class we go, and here we can see in club is Adam Lynch. 2nd place of the season opener, and now his first win on the board on 190 points. He has opened up quite a sizable and tangible gap there to Ashley Shucksmith of 34 points. Another privateer, to be fair, that 2nd place last time out is definitely the podium that he'll feel he missed at the Hockenheim ring, and therefore his thought process today will be to try and move even further forward. He stood out in the wet conditions in Belgium, but with dry conditions expected today, will that mean his Ferrari is put a little bit further back, or will he be able to move forward? Jack Giles for Eurotitans Endurance sits there in 3rd, and after that absolutely brilliant win in an incredible 7-way battle for victory in Germany, well, last time out he was nowhere near the front. It was a very tough round with 10th place in qualifying followed up by 9th place finish, and it was full of blips and speed bumps at the circuit Spa-Francorchamps, and he'll be hoping it'll be a round to forget and it will really become his drop score. Christopher Petty sits in 4th place with 126 points, 6 ahead of Philip Harris, and then we do have Dwayne Hoffman for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport on 96 points there, and while nursing an injury from the GTE Championship, he'll be looking forward to seeing what he can do today, but he'll be mindful of his injury as he tries to push forward. James Fraser sits in 7th place for Michelin Racing Club ahead of Jordan Butler. And then we do see Arno Prague in 9th place. But it's very tight between the trio there. And keep your eyes out for both Fraser and Butler. Fraser taking his first podium last time out. And while he was very pleased with that, Jordan Butler with that non-finish after his incredible podium performance in Germany. So he's got everything to bounce back for today. And Arno Prague, meanwhile, well, he's yet to really take his first top 5. But he has got elements of pace to the top 5. He's just got to have some better luck. Rob Gregg sits in 10th place, there with 76 points, 2 behind 9th. And then we do see Steve Hughes first, 16 points behind there in 11th place. And behind the Welshman is going to be Ollie Smith there, round out your top 12 of the club championship. But then to the team standings we go. And a reminder, this team championship is across both of our splits. So this is both Masters and Superstars. And what you can see is that DDK Racing Team are leading the way, but they've got close company in the form of Vulcan Motorsports Gold. It's only at 14 points between the two teams, but they are starting to make a bit of a break versus Beowulf Racing Team. But Beowulf are leading the rest of the top 5 because they've got LS Racing and Samantha Tanner Racing not too far behind. And then we see outside of the trophy positions, GPX Sport Zen, and they are only 16 points adrift, but they've got a lot of pressure behind. We're Duro Titans, they're ahead of Axis Sim Coach, and then we do have Vulcan Motorsport and Darkwing Racing around off that top 10. But it's too early really to say if we've got any favourites right now, but that gives you an idea of how close it's going to be in the Teams Championship, at least for now, as we continue our way for the first half of the season. So we brought you up to speed with the standings. Now let's bring you up to speed with our host circuit for today, and it's of course the Mugello Grand Prix circuit. Located near the town of Scapia is San Piero in the region of Florence, I do believe the municipality of Florence in the Tuscany province of Italy. 3.25 miles in length or 5.24 kilometres depending on your preference of units, but what never changes is the number of corners, 15 of them. And a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just the brilliant simulator, the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. And the problem with a two-dimensional track map is it's two-dimensional, and this circuit is absolutely filled with elevation changes that are woven like stitching into the core of the corners, and therefore you've got plenty of camber changes as much as you've got elevation changes around the lap. And as our drivers roar the way down the start-finish straight, they'll find out how immediate as they go up over a crest and then down into San Donato at turn 1. A heavily cambered right-hander as they'll make their way through. You can overtake just as much on the outside as you can on the inside. side. Indeed, you could liken it in a way the Italian equivalent of Tarzanbocht at Circuit Zandvoort in the Netherlands. But as they make the way up the hill, our drivers will make their way into the first of 5 chicanes, beginning with Luco and Poggio Secco at turns 2 and 3, where it's all about making sure you hit those apexes as best as possible, but you avoid the sausage curbs. Carry the speed out, you'll head up towards the second chicane on Materazzi into Borgo San Lorenzo at turns 4 and 5. Left into right, you'll go there, but you'll notice the angle that connects the 2 corners is a little bit gentler, which means drivers can carry slightly more speed compared to the previous pair of corners. Get that right, you'll be making your way into the third chicane sequence at turns 6 and 7, as our drivers will make their way down through Casanova in towards Savelli, and then it's a complete downhill plunge. They build up speed through turn number 7, and then make their way in towards the double right-hander of Arrabbiata. Through turn number 8, it's all about lifting the throttle and getting the car to settle down as you then go full throttle up towards Arrabbiata 2, and going through the blind right-hander, it's over the summit. We're going in towards Scarpiera Bend. At turns 10 and 11, it's another chicane, and right into the left they'll go, completely the opposite of the start lap, where it's been left into right, and as they make their way on through that complex, they'll then head over the rise and downhill the brake in towards Correntara corner at turn number 12. There, the circuit just gradually falls away for our drivers. Indeed, it feels like it's the Italian equivalent of Rivage, but a lot more speed compared to the Belgian corner. As they come down through the right hander, they'll make their way through Biondetti, flat out at turns 13 and 14, before head towards Bussi corner at turn number 15, where it's downhill much like Correntara corner at turn number 12, but it's a much wider corner on the exit and plenty more runoff area available, which means our drivers can carry a lot more speed out of the corner, and that's all going to be part of the game plan as they sprint the way to another lap, alternatively to the finish line. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that brings you up to speed with the scene and how the standings stand after 2 rounds of racing. Let's now make our way back to circuit side and see how our drivers get it on with 15 minutes left in qualifying. And so, as we do look to the circuit, well, right now the fastest driver out there seems to be none other than Milton Tomlinson-Dennis as he makes his way on through. Currently the fastest by 3 tenths almost over Brandon Dyer. Well, the pro driver right now definitely trying to show to the field that he's definitely the driver to beat on 1 lap pace. And apart from the scare of Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, he has been the driver who has controlled the races so far. Albeit it's too early to say he's going to be the dominant force, but he's making himself an early favourite gradually. And once again, he might be able to gap the field significantly in qualifying, but will he be able to gap them in the race? Now, interestingly, Brandon Dyer, Raz Harper and Charlie Walker all separated by 700. Here is Charlie Walker as Harper and Dyer are both in the pit lane. It does seem to be we have an army of Ford Mustangs trying to chase down one very quick Lamborghini Huracan driver. The Mustang has been to be a very popular choice on the grid in more recent seasons. Excuse me there, ladies and gentlemen, I was just simply suppressing some flatulence. We didn't want that coming through the microphone. But as we do see our drivers making the way on through, Charlie Walker charging his way down the start finish straight, and the relentless racing driver pursuing a fast lap, no doubt about it, with Richard Simnor almost 2 tenths behind his Corvette. Well, this has also proven to be an increasingly popular car for those willing to get to grip with an American machine that's mid-engine rear-wheel drive, and of course the Corvette C8 Stingray GT3, or formerly known as the Corvette 06 C8 GT3R. Indeed, that's a bit of a mouthful there, and well, this car arriving in its GTE form, of course, in 2022, and then being translated into a GT3 racing car as of 2024. This car has been one of those whereby if you're looking for a bit of American muscle, but you want the engine behind you, if you prefer a cornering car, well, it's got you absolutely covered. But no doubt about it, as Richard Sindor cools down, he improves to 45.043. That's an impressive improvement of half a tenth. But meanwhile, as we look behind him from your top 5 that's all pros, we then look to Jared Love, who is currently the provisional pole sitter in the Interclass. And will Love right now, I can tell you one thing, he absolutely adored racing at Hockenheim. Indeed, he mentioned in his post-round interview that it's a circuit he absolutely loves to drive around with a technical test. He did infer the fact that the Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, he did expect to be right up there just because of how much the Circuit Spa-Francorchamps features on so many calendars and so many championship series. So he expected everyone to have the knowledge to potentially equal him, if not beat him there. But he managed to be able to be the best of the drivers in the Interclass. And here today, right now, he seems to be in a world of his own, but not if he makes a mistake like that, going to the gravel trap coming out to turn at number 11, but even the best there make mistakes, to be fair, and he does tow back to the pit lane, but he seems to be in control at the moment, because then it's 2 tenths back to Villa Kotonen, and well, the Finnish driver here, he's now starting to get the upper hand compared to the rest of the interfield, particularly his teammate of Nicholas Carlson, who has proven to be more having the spotlight on him so far this season compared to Kotonen, whereas previously it has typically been slightly the other way round, where Kotonen has normally been the quicker driver, at least in qualifying, and in the races they've been equal. But then again, I think that pace gap last season started to close in season 11, and now we are starting to see that they are both equal. It really comes down to the day, the car, and how the driver's feeling. And the car's always going to be an important element because of the balance of performance. These are GT3 machines, of which we do have the best part, if my memory serves me correctly, of 13 available to choose from on iRacing. I'm sure somebody's going to correct me if I've got that wrong. I'm not going to go through the entire list right now and get all my fingers out here in the commentary booth, although I'm tempted to break out an abacus. But as we do see Katona making his way around in the Mercedes, we are expecting this to be one of those circuits whereby handling cars can be just as powerful as power cars. Although, one of the full precedents here is the fact that with the power cars, they've got this long start-finish straight, not quite a kilometre in length. We're not Fuji levels of start-finish straight. We are getting close there. It is a bit of a preparation of the way for Fuji in a week's time. We've got this long start-finish straight, and we then have got loads of flowing corners. The downside of the likes of the Mercedes, of course, is front engine rear-wheel drive. You do have a very front-loaded car by default, all the weight ahead of the driver, which means the car is prone to understeer, and it's quick-fire direction changes that normally do see the car a bit unsettled, because the rear of the car becomes very light as you go through these quick direction changes, and that's the problem. When all the weight's concentrated on the nose by default, and you push even more of it onto the nose when you use the brakes, well, suddenly this car really wants to pitch around. Meanwhile, speaking of a very different style of pitching, as Bobby Moss is looking third fastest at Inter at the moment, 13 overall. Well, he's looking quite impressive, to be fair. He's been in the shadows so far this season, but the Porsche 992 GT3R driver is definitely looking a bit quicker today, whereas rear-engine, rear-wheel drive Porsche, the thing about this car is it doesn't have the speed on the straight, but it definitely has some very powerful traction out the corners, and with all the weight over the rear axle, the great thing about this car is you can really bury the throttle on corner exit, even for those direction changes. You drive this car with the throttle, essentially. The rear end, it dictates which way the car is going to go, and the front just helps pull it through the corner, which is the complete opposite of the front engine rear-wheel drive cars such as the Mercedes, the Ford Mustang and the BMW M4. Although unfortunately for Bobby Ross, what's going to dictate him here is the fact he catches a Moonshiners Racing Club driver. Well, both of them here, I think, feel they're on laps, and I think they're both going to get on each other's nerves slightly, as Moss in the end does run a little bit wide there, and worse than he probably qualified. When you catch up to another driver, he's flashing his headlights, and well, I think there, as he makes way into the pit lane, that flash of the headlights was his equivalent of trying to say, I'm going for first, but unfortunately, he's not been able to make his pole lap happen there. But as we see Mark Collicott make his way onwards, he's currently the full fastest in the interclass there, 16th overall, and he's only the best part of 3.5 hundredths quicker than Nicholas Carlson, who rounds off the top 5. We've spoken about Pro and also Inter. What about Club? Well, Arno Prague here, looking very good. New livery on the car. I did have a chat with Denny, one of his teammates, Arno's teammates, I should say, for MJK Sim Racing, and I did say to him, why can't we get to see all 3 cars in identical liveries but different colours? Because, of course, many of you may associate Arno with the Jägermeister machine. That was not a complaint, it was just a suggestion of the fact they do have this absolutely brilliant livery, in which you see Prague to make his way around. And Denny mentioned to me in the build up to this round that they would be switching the livery on Arno's car, and they would be switching it to their team livery with orange as the main colour theme, as we do see there. I believe that's Denny Ploger going sideways to the rear of the picture to get it a bit wrong, and I think Prague backing off there. I think he was hoping that he could give his teammate a bit of a slipstream, but Prague in that new livery, I can tell you one thing, it's given him a bit of a boost, because he's currently the fastest in club class, 22nd overall. And in terms of the gap he's got, or the gap he's got to Steve Hughes, in terms of places, it's 7 places, but in terms of time, it's 7 tenths. Well, that's a bit of a coincidence there. 7 places or 7 tenths. Well, about that. And as Hughes makes his way around, he's currently only the best part of 21 thousandths quicker than Adam Lynch, who makes his way up the rise, albeit he won't be doing that correctly for Arrabbiato as he runs wide, and as he does so, gets off the road immediately to let the Darkwing Racing machine make its way on past. But Lynch there having a bit of a scare as he came out of Arrabbiato. When he brings it back together, will push it hard, but understandably, he's got a lot more work to do. And what's very interesting to see in the club class in particular is the preference of a lot of drivers to go with the Porsche. Now, that's not because the Porsche, according to the balance of performance, is overpowered or anything along those lines. It is a very comfortable car, the Porsche 992. It's one of those cars whereby, if you are looking for a car that you can jump into, and it gives you a lot of feedback when you do get it wrong, but also it feels very good when you get it right, the Porsche is one of those cars. The Ford Mustang and the Mercedes in the front engine rear-wheel drive category are very popular as well, and that's where you've seen several of them up towards the very front of the field. The Porsche definitely one of the kings when it comes to popularity. Well, right now Adam Lynch trying to get a bit more out of it, as Denny Ploger, the driver we saw going very sideways earlier on, well, he's now bringing himself back up to speed. He's currently full fastest in the club class in 31st place, and in terms of his lap time, that 1 minute 46.637, it is only what is half a tenth of Lynch's time. So we've got quite a close club class if you exclude our original pole sitter Prague, but then again, things can change, and one driver who wants to change that will be Jack Giles. He makes his way out of turn number 12 in towards 13 and 14, but he goes for the flow here, and understandably, his game plan is going to be to see if he can go a little bit further right now because this is not where he wants to be, and after his win in the season opener, he's got a lot more work he wants to do here today. But I think that can be said for James Fraser as well, as the Moonshiders Racing Club driver, currently down in 37th, that's 9th in club, albeit he does prefer mixed conditions typically. That seems to be where he goes the strongest, but we have got a very competitive club class this season. All of our classes are very close, to be fair, although some of the gaps would not suggest it, but we have had some absolutely brilliant battles for the lead and the podium spots so far. Nobody really has run away with it, although you would say, given the fact we had back-to-back winners in both Pro and also Inter, that perhaps I'm contradicting myself. Well, it may look like that on paper, but the reality is Milton Tomlinson-Dennis didn't have that much of a gap in Germany, and last time in Spa-Francorchamps there was a bit of fortune out there, as well as the team getting it right in terms of tweaking the setup in the pit lane. Jared Love, well, he had back-to-back wins, but of course at the Hockenheim ring he did stay ahead of his rivals and gradually gapped them until Kyle Roy completely threw a span in the works by putting him under a lot of pressure in the closing laps, and Ross Young would have been there if it were not for a late spin. And then at Spa-Francorchamps it was all about Bradley Pickett getting it wrong that enabled Jared Love to sneak through when he was quite close behind in the late stages. Both of them were looking very impressive. But club, we haven't really had a driver so far, or a couple of drivers who've broken away. It has been whole collections of drivers. Well, that's the very interesting part so far of the season. But as Adam Smith improved to 16th place, a 45.609, an impressive lap there as he cools it down for a little bit, and will decide to go straight onto the gravel trap there and hopefully not into the barrier because the team don't want to do all the repair work with 5 minutes to go. Indeed, he decides to park up. But as he does, well, we need to get you an onboard lap, ladies and gentlemen, with one of our drivers, and who better to do so than with Richard Simnor as he goes around for a flying lap of the Circuit Mugello, or known in full as the Autodromo Internazionale del Mugello Grand Prix Circuit. So making his way down towards turn number 1. As he does so, the Corvette looking to his left-hand side for his brake marker, will bring it over to the curb. Onto the angle as he goes. At the 100-metre board, he'll go onto the brakes. We apologise for the visual glitch there. And he comes on through in third gear. Now bury the throttle, build it up, and bring it over to the right-hand side to open up turn 2. Here, hold third gear as he makes his way from left into right through the opening chicane. Making sure not to hit those sausage curbs on the right-hand side to avoid upsetting the car. And now going down towards turn number 4. Looks to his right-hand side for his brake marker. It'll be the 50-metre board there. Coming down to 4th gear. Chucking the car. Oh, that's very sideways there. That's the rear of the Corvette coming around. Giving the engine and the weight transfer. But with that correction, he now makes his way into turn 6 and 7. Down here from the right into left here. This is all about patience of the throttle. Feed it in. And now flat out here. And he'll bring the car quickly over to the left to open up the opening point of Arrabbiata. Here it's about patience once again. Lift off the throttle, hold 5th gear, and now up the hill he goes. Keep the foot on the throttle to make sure the rear stays planted as he comes around. And going over the rise now in towards turn number 10. Onto the brakes he'll go, about 75 minutes and quarter apex. Trail braking down to 3rd gear. Needs to let the car roll a little bit deep to avoid the curbing. And now coming through turn number 11. Lovely line through there. And Simnon now going in towards turn number 12. And here he'll go onto the brakes quite early, about 100 metres on the quarter apex. And you can see it just continues to fall away from him in 3rd gear. And he brings the throttle back in and perfectly times it to make sure he doesn't understeer wide. Flat out now through turns 13 and 14. As he makes his way onwards towards turn number 15. Well, only one more quarter to go, but this is the quarter that can make or break a lap as he goes onto the brakes, 100 metres of quarter apex, all the way down to 3rd gear, lets it roll into the middle of the road, V-shapes off the apex, and now flat out all the way to the line. He did have that mistake, of course, coming out of turns 4 and 5, which upset the lap a little bit, so for Simnor this will not be an improvement, but still, it was a good attempt, no doubt about it, and in the end, what's that lap going to be? It's going to be a 45.872. We'll give it his best so far. It's been a 45.043. You can see how much that mistake cost him, but also the fact he's not been on a perfect lap. A big thank you to Richard for the on-board lap. Either way, it gives us an idea of exactly how you're meant to try and drive the car around the Mugello circuit to get the best possible lap time. But as we do look back to Andy Jones, and Jones there for DCW Racing, a bit of a different livery on the car there. I'm trying to see what they've got all over the car, the Acura NSX Evo 22. And the answer to that is, in terms of all those, is that a load of cats I see on the car? I think it is. I think that is the infamous cat livery from DCW Racing, and I do have the pleasure of knowing a few of the DCW guys. I've known them for a couple of years, and there's always the talk of, should we bring out the cat livery, if I remember correctly? And well, they seem to have broken out. I don't know what the story is behind the livery. I'm sure they may enlighten me at some point. I need to ask them, in fact. I can tell you one thing, this livery definitely stands out for all the right reasons. And well, I wonder if he'll be purring his way towards a perfect opportunity or a perfect pole lap today, or whether for Andy Jones it's going to be a bit of a difficult one. And well, I won't go making any jokes or try to find a way to somehow squeeze into the commentary booth, ladies and gentlemen, because otherwise I think that may even make me die a little bit inside. But as he makes his way up the hill, we look forward to seeing what Andy can do here today. And with only 2 minutes to go, he's going to go some now if he wants to find his way into the top 10 overall, let alone trying to make his way to the top 5 of the pro class. But as he does make his way around, we look to Ashley Shucksmith. the wet weather hero in the club class and the KFC machine right now. Well, unfortunately, it is not looking Ferrari looking good as he comes on down in towards turn number 1. And the problem is that for the 172 driver, he's currently down in 30th place in club. But to be fair to him, when you look at the gaps from driver to driver, it's a 10th from him to Brandon. Then it's a further, what is 4 tenths Eddie Theobald, but he's only a 10th ahead of Max Dean by comparison. It is a very tight spread in the club class in general, and it's no surprise that a driver who's very quick at one circuit may be a lot further back at the next circuit. It's not because they don't have the ability, it's simply because we have got such a competitive grid out there. And well, the best part of 46 tries and 10s today, the driver who's at the very back of the moment is none other than Sean Clark, or Shawnee Clark as he's known, and the Dexterous Motorsports driver makes his way down the hill and having to let a driver go. He'll be getting ready for one final lap because, of course, remember, we do have overtime in effect, which means when the clock strikes 0, if a driver is on a lap, they are allowed to finish lap. They're not forced to immediately go back to the pit lane. There is no requirement to get it done within the 45 minutes of qualifying. You do have that little bit of extra time, and the final lap can be the very best one. But as he comes on around, meanwhile, Brandon Dyer is making his way around the circuit, makes way out the pit lane, in fact. So the Altitude 3M Esports driver goes out for an out lap. Literally qualified is about to end. I suspect this is potentially to try and gauge conditions. He's only done 9 laps in qualifying, whereas a lot of drivers have done 20 plus. Well, Brandon Dyer did his work early on and then simply said, right, that's it. I don't need to do any more. I'll be on the front row. And well, he's earned the right to be there, albeit by the best part of only 9 thousandths over Raz Harper, but I think that's the confidence levels in him. I think he feels like he did his best. Meanwhile, Kyle Roy in the Aston Martin, so he's had a change of car. He's got to the Aston Martin for the remainder of the season. That's interesting. So a change of car there for the Axis SimSport with SimWorks driver, and I wonder whether he feels as though the Aston Martin is going to better suit him. We normally associate it with the Corvette, but that hasn't quite worked out, and so he's going for front mid-engine rear-wheel drive, where the engine is behind the front axles to try and centralise the weight distribution of the car. And this Aston Martin, of course, a V8 supplemented by twin turbo system, so not quite the naturally aspirated V8 belonging to the Ford Mustang or the Mercedes, although it is a Mercedes engine in that car, contradictory to what many would think that it's going to be a British engine. The last of the British Aston Martin GT3s being, of course, the DBR9 GT1 that could also be raced as a GT3 with its 6-litre V12. Crazy to think that was the best part of almost 1.5 decades ago that car raced. I don't believe it, ladies and gentlemen, but as Kyle Roy makes his way down, he does improve there and keeps the spirit of Aston Martin alive with 4th place in the Interclass. An impressive end to his qualifying session with 45.495. Well done to him for that. Ross Young comes across the line. He does not improve and trims the grass. He comes down to Sandonato Bend. And we've still got a couple more drivers out there, including Eddie Theobald. And, well, Eddie Theobald in the red and white Mercedes. He's bringing Sean Clark around behind him. And Clark right now is looking to be on a personal best here. Well, he's definitely he's going to need to get going, given the fact he's currently 17th and last of our drivers overall, and 17th in the club class. And as he heads towards the timeline, what's he going to be here as he crosses the line? Will he be able to improve, or will he stay where he is? He does improve, but he does not go any higher. So it's the 50.209, but he's finding time out there gradually. James Fraser does not improve behind him, and with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is qualifying complete. So Milton Tomlinson-Dennis is going to take pole position once again. He makes it 3 poles on the bounce. We're 44.566 in pro and overall, with Brandon Dyer missed out by 3 attempts, but he just snuck his way into second place ahead of Raz Harper and what is Charlie Walker. And on row number 3, it's going to be Nils Parkaga ahead of Richard Simnor before you do get to your interpole sitter of Jared Love, who in the end taking 7th place overall. Congratulations to him for a brilliant pole lap there in his Ferrari. Well, not his Ferrari, it is 4th there. I'm thinking back to the previous season. My apologies. And well, Villa Catona will be 2nd in the Interclass in 10th place. And then we will have to go to 13th place for Bobby Moss. He'll be 3rd in the Inter, his best qualifying points of the season thus far. And a bit ahead of Kyle Roy, who managed to sneak ahead of Mark Collicott for 4th place in class by only 300ths at the end of the session. Meanwhile, in the club class, it will be Arno Prout. It starts in pole position there. His first pole position of the season in club, starting 22nd overall. And in the end, 7 places ahead of Steve Hughes and then Adam Lynch just behind there to complete their top 3 with Hughes and Lynch 29th and 30th. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our qualifying session. And as the circuit goes silent for a brief moment, well, the good news is it doesn't go silent for too long, because coming up now is the 5-minute warm-up. So our drivers have an opportunity to be able to get themselves all warmed up and exercised with regards to the race setup of the car as Brandon Dyer makes his way back out. And as he does so, we take a look at the weather conditions here today. And as we can see on the right-hand side of your picture, the weather, not too bad. We do have an ambient temperature of 90 degrees centigrade and a track temperature of 21. I suspect that track temperature is going to come up quite significantly as we go racing. And partial cloud out there. We don't have complete sunshine. It's not perfectly blue skies, but it is the early hours of the morning. We're coming up to about 9 o'clock local circuit time. So therefore, relatively cool conditions compared to what you could expect here at Italy in the spring. But therefore, it means that the circuit should offer quite optimal grip for our drivers, but there's quite a bit of wind as Brandon Dyer loses it there coming out of turn number 4. Well, that's not optimal grip, that is suboptimal with the way he's gone through that corner, but I suspect that's cold tyres and just pushing it a little bit too hard. And don't be surprised if we do see a few spins from our drivers as they do go through the opening few corners of the opening couple of laps, because with cold tyres and also those curves, you need to abuse those curves as much as possible. But contrary to popular opinion, whilst those curves are to be used, they are an extension of track limit, they are not as grippy as normal rubber tarmac. Indeed, it's a slipperier surface, even in the dry, and it does mean for drivers, if you go out there on cold tyres and you've got too much steering lock on, or the rear of the car is not settled down, those curves could be your undoing rather than your making in the early stages. And only once you've got the tyre temperature, you want to abuse them as much as possible. As Richard Simler shows you how to smoothly make your way over those curves when he's on cool tyres. As he comes around the DCW Racing Blue Dry would know that right now, if he can do this over the race distance, he could be on course for quite the stellar result. He may even have a chance of a podium, if not at least a top 5 in Pro. But as our pole sits ahead to the round as well, there's no time like the present for the Samantha racing driver Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, and he's using every present moment to put a lap together. And understandably right now, I think he's absolutely itching to go green flag racing. I think all the drivers are, and some are deciding to stay in the pit lane, understandably, to make sure and that they do not overexert themselves. You need some taking a bit of a comfort break. And that's what we'd recommend to yourself. If you're tuning in right now and you're sat there thinking, I might need to go to the bathroom 10 minutes into the broadcast. Can I hold it in? Well, you've got 60 minutes of racing around the corner. You've got a 1 hour race, and you wouldn't want to miss a single second of it. Or if you need to get a top up of liquid refreshment, or alternatively you want to go get yourself a snack, go do it now, because you've got 2.5 minutes, but we do make our way to the grid. And then once we do, well, the action will not stop coming until the checker flag. And therefore, we strongly recommend you don't risk missing a single moment. And right now, Jordan Butler in the full tilt virtual motorsport car, the lovely purple black livery machine. Indeed, FTVM do have some absolutely ecstatic liveries out there, and will make his way down in towards turn number 15. And looking to see what he can do with a decent qualifying performance. Definitely not pole position in the club class, but compete as always and itching for a fight. We wonder whether today the fight will go his way, as he's done an outlap there, makes his way back into the pit lane. I think he's decided that he's done enough. He doesn't need to go any further, as Mikhail Abasek, the Inox Motorsport driver, heads down the hill. And as he does so, well, not the best of qualifying performances from him in interclass, but to be fair, the Mercedes driver will be looking to move forward rather than backward over the race, and that's the thing you can never count about. He's always growing in pace, and Inox Motorsport in general, a very impressive collection of drivers, and Mikhail Abasek definitely a key part of the team, and he'll be hoping that perhaps today he can see things through to a decent result. But what about Stephen Kershaw? I hear you ask. Here is the privateer in the Golf livery machine. I do love that profile picture, a smile on his face, indeed a jacket there which matches the colour of the car, and I should presume that was by design. That's not a coincidence. I'm sure he'll tell me later on if it is a pure coincidence there, but it's too much to be a coincidence, surely. As Stephen right now finding that he does have an Aston Martin behind him of Schubert Cardozo. Now, Cardozo was very impressive in practice. He was one of the fastest drivers in practice. However, in qualifying, he's not been up there compared to his pro rivals. So therefore, there's been a bit of a disconnect between the two, and I suspect that some drivers were holding back a little bit and perhaps doing a race practice rather than qualifying practice. But Cardozo, hopefully he has a bit of better luck. He's had a lot of bad luck so far this season. And with the Inter-Racing Team driver in general, this isn't being rude about him. He, arguably, if he would be walking down the street, he would probably be the driver who would have all the black cats walk past him and also end up having to walk under a ladder without meaning to. He just had that much bad luck in the last couple of seasons, but hopefully his luck does turn around today. As he makes his way down the start-finish straight, there are some drivers like that. They just have this run of bad luck. No matter how quick, no matter how good they are, they always find bad luck. And that's a bit unfortunate for Bradley Setters as he goes around. And hopefully I haven't just put the commentator's curse on the 336 driver. If I have, well, I do apologise in advance, Bradley. I know this is a post-round broadcast, but I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. These broadcasts, somehow we do end up accidentally putting the commentator's curse on that drives, even though the racing has already happened. Anywho, as we look to Ben Woodgate, well, he will see us through to the end of this warm-up session, because with 3, 2, 1, it's done. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it's time as Woodgate gives us a slide. Arabiata well controlled that man. He's being a bit of a drift king today. It's time to head to the grid for round number 3 of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 GT3 Championship Season 12. You're tuning to Superstars, but who's going to shine the brightest here at Mugello? We're about to find out. And so as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is the lineup for our one and only 60-minute race. Taking pole position today, overwhelming pro, it's Milton Tomlinson-Dennis for Samantha Tam Racing. He'll be joined on the front row by Brandon Dyer for Altitude 3M Esports, who is 3 tenths behind. Raz Harper, he begins his day in third place ahead of DDK with the DDK with race that bot driver, then ahead of Relentless Races. Charlie Walco starts in 4th place. Then we will see in 5th, it's going to be Nils Buckarger, the privateer for NJB Performance. He's got some work cut out for him if he wants to make his way forward. Given the fact the German driver is going to have some pressure for Richard Simler behind, and the DCW Racing Blue driver proved himself to be a very close equal to Buckarger towards the end of qualifying. From the DCW Racing Corvette, it will then be your Interpol sitter of Jared Love for DDK with Race That Bot. A very impressive performance from him in qualifying. Now, can he convert it into his 3rd win of the season? Stuart Cardozo starting 8th there, the Inter-Racing team driver. He may have been a bit disappointed with his qualifying lap, given the fact he was so much closer on the pace to the front 2 rows in practice. But to be fair, starting on the 4th row, he won't be too aggrieved at that, and he can make his way forward from there. Ben Woodgate starts 9th for Inter-Racing team, just behind his teammate, and the two separated by only 300ths of that. Ville Katonen will be 2nd of your Inter drivers, starting 10th for Beowulf Racing team, and as they all get ready to go away, and in fact they go away for the formation lap, let's carry on through. As Daniel Page starts in 11th there for Daniel Newman Racing Red. And then we do have Andy Jones starting in 12th for DCW Racing Blue. From the Welshman, it is then going to be to the Britain of Bobby Ross for the SimRacing Collective Esports, 3rd of your Inter drivers, head of Ashley Coupland for Relentless Racing. Huge shout out to Ashley for providing the replay file for this broadcast. Really do appreciate it. And in fact, we're going to refer to him as Ash from now onwards. His full name is Ashley Coupland, but he does prefer normally to be referred to as Ash, and I'll try to remember that. Elliot Court starts in 15th there for DDK with Race That Bot, ahead of Kyle Roy, who'll be 4th of your Inter drivers that accesses what with Sim Works. Then we do have Mark Collicott starting his day in 17th place for DCW Racing Blue, head of Adam Smith there for Euro Titans Endurance, who was only half a tenth behind. Then it's going to be Nicholas Carlson for Beowulf Racing Team ahead of Tom Weston. They complete your top 20. Outside the top 20 behind the privateer of Weston, it's then going to be 21st for Ross Young, and will the Clarkson James with DXT driver not having a happy qualifying performance today, he's got to make it up in the race. Then we have our club pole sitter, 22nd MJK Sim Racing's Arno Prague ahead of Bradley Setters for Relentless Racing, with Bradley Pickett there. It's going to be the battle of the two Brads, if you will. He starts 24th there for Clarkson James with DXT. Corey Price, well, how about that? 25th. The Darkwing Racing driver just not having a happy qualifying session whatsoever. He's got a lot of work to do in the race now, and that's a big shock to the system, with Sam Hockley alongside him at 13th on the rows, but 26th in terms of grid position. David Bigelow starts in 27th for DCW Racing Yellow ahead of Mikhail Abasek for Inox Motorsport, and completing your top 30, it's going to be the pairing of Steve Hughes for Freewheeler Racing with UK Sim Racing, and then Adam Lynch, the privateer. They are 2nd and 3rd in the club class. Outside of your top 30, 31st, 4th in the club class, it's Denny Ploger with an impressive qualifying lap there for MJK Sim Racing, just ahead of Martin Kenyon for Clarkson James with DXT. And then to have Jack Giles starting 33rd at Euro Titans Endurance ahead of Ollie Smith, and then from the Simstrap by Glasstep Racing driver, it will be only the grand total of 400s there to Jordan Butler for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport. And then to have Christoph Hetty starting 36th ahead of James Fraser for Moonshine's Racing Club, and Steve Kershaw did not have a happy qualifying performance. He starts 14th in the interclass, 38th overall, and then we'll see completing your top 40. It's going to be Rob Gregg for Moonshine's Racing Club, directly behind his teammate Fraser, and he'll be joined on that 20th row by Eddie Theobald. Outside the top 40, as the field crawls its way up through Arabiato, going very slowly at the boat, we'll see in 41st place, it's going to be Martin Brandon there for Axis Simsport with Simworks, head of Ashley Shucksmith, the privateer. Then on the penultimate row of the grid, it's going to be Max Dean and Philip Harris, and behind the Euro Titans Endurance driver, making up your final row, it's going to be Dwayne Hoffman for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport, and Sean Clark for Clarkson James with DXT. As that is the field, ladies and gentlemen, they're all mostly set now to go racing, although we do have a pit lane start for Martin Brandon and Ross Young, so therefore we are 44 cars on the starting order, and a couple of places will be gained by other drivers. But as this formation lap gradually comes to a close, we are not too far away from going green flag race. They all come down the round, and well, very soon we will be go. But lovely field as they make the way around. We do ride aboard Ash Coutland here as he comes down the hill, and as he does so through turn number 12, we'll try to get as much tyre temperature as he can. He gives himself a little bit of space to the cars in front, but he won't be able to tarry for too much longer, as always he will be in a hurry. And remember, they've got to stay within a defined distance of each other when they do bunch up, but now they do behind the cars in front. And Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, well, he's on your very left there. in your picture at the front of the field, but he'll have Brandon Dyer alongside, and it was 3 attempts in qualifying that separated the two of them. In theory, MTD should run away at the start, but will he be able to? Will we see Brandon Dyer surprise everybody, or will Milton Tomlinson-Dennis have a smooth run to try and make it 3 in a row, or can somebody else put their name on the top step for the first time this season? All that and more we're about to see, ladies and gentlemen, as this formation lap comes to a close, and it's over to Milton Tomlinson-Dennis to take us away for 60 minutes of racing action here at the Mugello circuit. And it's lights down, away we go for 60 minutes of races. The drivers roar the way away. And Milton Tomlinson-Dennis there gets a good start on the way as they charge the way down the hill towards turn number 1. But as they do so, all these drivers right now very close together. Will we see a potential move? Not quite, because Brandon Dyer is going to cover off Raz Harper, and they get very close down to breaking 3 wide further behind as they all come roaring up through. These drivers right now pushing each other to the absolute limit as they head up the hill. Richard Simnel there, he may have made the move, as meanwhile Walker and Harper are side by side coming through, but Simnel has clears Bukaga. Meanwhile, oh, that goes so for Daniel Page. He's into the barrier there, being tapped on the rear. We've got a couple of cars taken to the gravel, making the way through turn number 3, but Page is going to lose out massively as we all look to Christopher Petty chasing after Jordan Butler. Butler's had a good start to this race. Oh, there's a car backwards. Oh my good lord, that's Andy Jones. Andy Jones is accurate, goes sideways and across the road. Christopher Petty being collected, several cars being collected. That huge incident, and we'll have to get a replay of that when we can. Eddie Fearbomb is in the front bumper there, so there's been a lot of drama already. But meanwhile, Bobby Boss, he's had a very poor start, dropping several places already as he makes his way around. That's not the way he's wanted to go whatsoever. And right now, it's definitely been a bit of a tough start for some, but not quite for others as they roar the way around. But as they charge away onwards, well, there's still more to come, no doubt about it, for these drivers as they head onwards now to the second half of the lap, and we'll see what's to come next. But as they charge their way through, well, right now, Bobby Boss behind Adam Smith here, and it's definitely proven to be a bit of a difficult start for him. But as the front of them, it's going to be Bradley Setters and Elliot Court together. And Bradley Setters right now keeping the DDK racing car behind him at least for this time as they roll the way in towards turn number 12. But there's still plenty of time in this race as Bobby Boss right now battling side by side with Adam Smith. He's going to try and go for the move through turns 13 and 14. He's going to find out that Mercedes is not going to back out. But in the end, he's going to have to back out as Boss forces his way on the inside. Oh, hold up. Who's that side across there? That's Mark Collicott. Collicott's got it wrong at turn number 14. I think he's touched the gravel on the exit. The front bumper comes off the car. He ejects his way out there like an ejection seat. And meanwhile, Thomas West there in the Union Jack car. Well, currently running in full place in the Interclass. He's had a decent start to this race, but goodness me, what a start it has been. There's been chaos, there's also been some brilliant battles, and we'll have to try and stitch it all together. But at the very front of the Interclass, Willett Katonen, he's leapt in. Now, of course, we have lost our pole sitter in the man is Jared Love. He dropped all the way down to 37th place. We didn't quite see what happened to him, but he has lost out. Meanwhile, looking further back, Raz Harper and Bradley Setters and Elliot Court all fighting together still. And right now, so close between the trio here. But as we do see Harper chasing down Setters, and well, just behind, we can see Elliot Court there. Well, he's now really trying to work his way forward as they make their way up towards the next braking zone. Oh my goodness, and that is Thomas Weston. Weston gets it wrong coming out to turn number 3. Car into the barrier there. The privateer is backwards, not quite out this race, but he's down. He's not out. And he waits for the whole field to make its way on past. Meanwhile, as we see Jack Giles here under pressure from Steve Hughes. Hughes right now trying to fight him for 3rd place in the club class. So plenty more fighting to come. And these drivers right now absolutely loving the battling, no doubt about it. We've got so much battling going on at this moment, but I suspect there's going to be even more before this is all said and done. We'll have to see what's to come next as drivers make their way up the hill. James Fraser there following behind and running in 25th at the moment, but 6th place in the club class. He's had a decent start to this race, no doubt about it, but now he's got to get his head down and think, right, what can I do next? And the answer, well, only he's going to be able to give the answer, but I suspect his target will be getting past Eddie Ploger. When he's catching up to him sooner rather than later. Ploger will be keen to chase after Steve Hughes, but looking at back down the order even further. So Philip Harris here, battling hard with Eddie Fearbold, but Fearbold missing a lot of bodywork on the front end of the car. So right now, this will be a Mercedes that's losing its straight line speed. It's losing its advantages, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to struggle through the corners. These drivers that come charging on down through its turns 13 and 14. And Jared Love behind. Well, he's got to pick all the pieces up for the DDK with race Statpot team. And we'll get a replay shortly to explain what exactly happened to him, and indeed what happened to several drivers as he tucks up the inside there of Max Dean. He's going to take that place quite quickly, and that's going to be a move made just like that, as smooth as butter. But at the very front of the field, well, we can't really talk about that at the moment because we've got more fighting to go on to. Although in theory, this is the front of the club field because it's Adam Lynch and Martin Kenyon. Kenyon an into driver, but look who's behind Arno Prague, and Adam Lynch is into lead of the club class. So he's taken that position of Arno Prague quite recently. Well, let's get a replay of that as Kenyon right now is trying to clear the club drivers. The inter driver just wants to run away in 9th place in his respective class, but it's going to be easier said than done when Adam Lynch right now has got other ideas. And down towards turn number 4. And the slight decline down the slope, and as they do, meanwhile, Charlie Walker's had a bit of a moment going out on turn number 5. In fact, that's Bobby Moss right behind him. Moss is going to go for the move here. Walker's still got himself settled down, and Moss right now is taking a big risk for going for this because that's going to bring Adam Smith right onto the back of him, and I think Moss there missed timing that. I think the game plan was to see if he could sweep past Walker if Walker needed more time to settle his car down. But Walker in the end had got things settled, and therefore the relentless racing Ford Mustang has actually now proved to be a little bit of an obstacle there for Bobby Moss. But just in front, Elliott Court still fighting here with Setters, also with, I believe, well, in fact, he just cleared him, and meanwhile, Raz Harper just in front and Kyle Roy together. Well, the DDK with race Snapbot driver in the 3-1-2. His game plan has been to clear the into second place runner. Now that he's done it, can he go chasing after Ash Coupland? Well, here is the relentless racing driver, and he'll be hoping that he can bring down the gap to Villa Katonen, who is the only inter driver between him and the leading top 5 of the pro class. But goodness me, as we look to the front at long last, front overall this time, well, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, after starting on pole, he's going to start to open up that gap. Gap to Brandon Dyer, 1.6 seconds he crossed the timeline going to lap number 4. Dyer in second, then it's Richard Simnor in third. As we see the Corvette, well, he's definitely had a stellar start. He started 6th, he's up in the third already, ahead of Nils Balkaga. Then we do have Ben Woodgate running 5th, but he started 9th. He's made his way up into 5th. A very impressive start for the Inter Racing Team driver. But his Aston Martin will then be your Inter leader of Villa Katonen, who stayed out of trouble ahead of Ashley Coupland, and then Raz Harper brings up 8th place with Carl Roy in hot pursuit, and it's Elliott Court completed at that top 10 with Bradley Setters right now being pushed left, right and centre by Bobby Moss and Charlie Walker behind. He holds on to 11th place. Moss is your 3rd place Inter driver. Meanwhile, in the lead of the club class, there's Adam Lynch in 20th, just ahead of Steve Hughes and Arno Prague. In fact, how on earth has Steve Hughes got there so quickly? I'm not quite sure, but I can tell you one thing, the Welshman is flying right now, and he's moved all the way out there, and Arno Prague has lost out. Prague is going backwards, whereas Lynch and Hughes are going forward. So, without further ado, we are going to make our way back in time and take a look at some of the big moments of the opening few laps of the race, including, of course, the race start. And so this is how it all began as the field got ready to get underway, and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis released them at 55 miles an hour as they roared the way down the start straight in towards turn number 1. But the big question mark we have is what exactly happened to Jared Love. So here he was then, side by side at the time, with Richard Simnor, losing out a little bit as Balkaga got ahead, so he had to back off there. But into the braking zone they went, it all fanned out. There was the inter-racing teams on either side of him. He was in the midst of a sandwich there, and Villa Katonen around the outside. So he went a little bit deep, but Katonen tried to go for it. So it's going to happen going through the S's seats then, through turns 2 through to 5. Lost the rear of the car then. Now, was he touched? I'm not sure, but that explains why we saw so much gravel dust going up. That was everyone taking evasive action, but it was Love going around there. I don't know if he was turned, but if he was, well, it's got to be in the tiniest of touches to send it around like that. Meanwhile, we did have a bit of a moment for Corey Price. And this was Corey Price making his way down towards turn number 1. So he was a bit further back in the field. And, oh my goodness, and that was the car being pinged. That was Arno Prague going very wide. And I think that was Netco contact there, sent to 11. And that would explain why Arno Prague lost out quite considerably, but he was able to hold on to the club lead initially. Now, as we saw the rest of the field then segue its way, well, we'd already had the incident, of course, for Jared Love. He got off the road, but we're going to try and get a replay of the incident from Love's perspective a bit better if we can. We then had a car round, and that was Andy Jones. But before we get to that, this was Elliott Court's run up the hill. And as he made his way into the corners, what exactly happened to him? Well, Courtney had to take the evasive action. That was because of Love's car going around, and there was the Daniel Newman racing car being ejected. So Courtney was able to avoid it. That was Daniel Page being sent away. This is what it looked like from Page's perspective. So he was making his way through. There is Love just in front. Was there contact? I think he tapped the rear of Balkaga's car, because in the end, he seemed to go around as a result of forward contact rather than rear. Meanwhile, Page was tapped by somebody there, and that sent him around. Couldn't quite tell you who and how that tap happened, but we can tell you that is what happened, is there was a bit of contact there. So he was ejected out. Love, unfortunately, losing out. And meanwhile, we did then have this big moment for Andy Jones, albeit we look at Martin Brandon as he made his way out the pit lane first. We do apologise for that, a little bit out of sequence. So his Audi made its way out the pit lane, and as it did so, the rear of the car went round, and the Widowmaker of the Audi strikes again, unfortunately, as it just slid loose. But the big instant, this was Andy Jones for DCW Racing in the Cat car, and as he made his way out, well, unfortunately, there was elbows out. That, I believe, was Villa Katona making contact with the Inter-Racing team cars, and Andy Jones, unfortunately, on the outside of the trio. Oh, my good lord, and India, more cars coming into the scene that nobody could see where Jones was in the middle of the road, and they would not have been able to tell the yellow flags were waving at that time. And this is what it looked like from Philip Harris's perspective. So keep in mind, Jones has already been knocked around now. He's in the middle of the road somewhere up there. The whole field comes on through. You see it all starts to crowd up, and Indy and Harris decides, right, it's time to go rally cross, and unfortunately, Jones was in the way still. And the inevitable is you find the grass and you'll find an Andy Jones in there, and I thought in Pokemon it was watch out for tall grass for creatures. No, in fact, they always tell me watch out for tall grass because there's Andy Jones. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way back to your live racing almost, but not without taking a look at how Adam Lynch on lap number 2 passed Arno Prague. Now, this was for the lead of the club class, and this will move up the inside. And will Prague in the edge had a bit of a poor run through the corner, and Lynch then just outpowering him down the start finish straight. So that explains how Prague lost out there, and Lynch just simply coming through. And that was when we picked it up, when it was the three-way battle between them. So we just caught the back end of that battle, and well, it goes to show you how it all played out between them. But brilliant fight, and Martin Kenyon in the end had to make sure he went around the outside to clear both of them. Albeit Kenyon there brave and risking it all, you could say, the Inter driver. But Lynch playing it very fair to him and let him gradually go up the hill because Prague had no ability to attack Lynch, and therefore Lynch playing it very smart. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we take a look back very quickly at Steve Hughes putting a move on Arno Prague. Well, this was pretty much on the same round of the corner, and again, I think Prague's got some damage, that car. That rear bumper does not look flush. It actually looks slightly crumpled in the centre, and I think he's perhaps had a bit of a knock, and it's perhaps just upset the balance of that Porsche, because Steve Hughes just powered his way on past it, and the quarter exit speed is nice. Well, that's about 2 miles an hour great on exit, and an equal machinery. If they're running the same amount of rear wing, that 2 miles an hour is going to translate into a position. Without further ado, we do now head back to your live racing. And as we do come back, there's been madness, but there's also been excitement, no doubt about it. They'll try to roar the way onwards, and as they do, Hughes still chasing after Lynch at the moment, but plenty more battles to come. Of course, a lot of drama at the start. Now things have settled down, at least towards the front of the field, but things are not settling back here because Denny Ploger has made his way past Prague to his teammate whilst we've been looking back at footage, so we can't get a replay of that. But what we can see is that Jack Giles now is looking for a move, but that's not going to work, as in the end Prague goes defensive, and Giles in fact outfoxes himself into a mistake. Well, that's going to enable David Biggerdike to simply try and go around the outside to inside. They make some contact there. No malice meant there. I think that was just Giles simply on an inside line into turn number 2 and find out there's not as much grip there because there's not as much rubber being laid down. And now Jared Love's going to try and have to make his way past. And Jared Love, of course, when that spin on the opening few corners, well, now he's got all his work cut out for him to try and make his way forward. And the question is, how far can Love go at this point? Well, he's going quickly as he looks up the inside there of a lap down car. That is the car of Jordan Butler that he's putting a lap on. And Butler making it as clear as possible to make sure he does not get in the way. Oh, this is getting a little bit contentious. I think we've had a bit of an incident. In fact, where's Thomas Weston in all of this? He was around them. I think Thomas Weston has been ejected stage right from that camera shot. There is Stuart Cardozo at the rear of the picture. And then we see at Weston, Thomas Weston right now being passed by Martin Brandon. And, well, the Union Jack Aston Martin right now could not be having a worse day at the office if it tried. And indeed, as they roll the way out the hill here, it's going to be so much wide. Brandon trying to make his way past, and Weston coming back at him through Arabiata. Not going to be easy here, and he's all over the back of him like a bad rash is Weston, but he's going to back off there. And Brandon right now doesn't quite have the speed of Weston, and Weston trying to carry all that speed. He's really trying to send a message here with these elongated corners, which is I've got so much more momentum than you. And well, as a result now, I think we will see a swap between them, but it won't be too far away. All the way out the front right now. He's a bit far away because that's Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, 3 seconds ahead of Brandon Dyer. And well, he's opened up that gap gradually over the opening 7 laps. And Richard Simnor, 1.5 seconds behind Dyer in 3rd place with Nils Bakaga in 4th. Ben Woodgate there, the Inter-Racing team driver. And unfortunately, it was not Woodgate who was caught up in that incident earlier on. It was Schubert Cardozo. Remember what I said earlier on about bad luck with Schubert Cardozo? Well, I didn't want to put the curse on him, but unfortunately, he's had bad luck once again. And that freeway contact, unfortunately, ejected Andy Jones off the road and back onto it. But as I do believe Cardozo is still running in this race, he's running down in 34th. Here he is. Well, the Inter-Racing team driver right now chasing after Chuck Smith and looking for a move. Dives up the inside there. Chuck Smith sees it coming at the last possible moment and in the end steps aside. I think Schubert Cardozo taking the approach, which is I'm going to force my way through. And well, damned if we be, damned if we do. They're going to get out of my way. Alternatively, I'll be coming for them. And as a result, the 307 driver there making a bit of an aggressive move, but a fair one at that. As meanwhile, Drayden Hoffman looking for a potential move on Eddie Fearbold. And well, the full tilt virtual motorsport driver has already made up several places since the start of this race, and we continue to see his campaign as he now makes his way down the hill here chasing after Fearbold, and we ride on board. Now, of course, the American driver, he's normally one of those drivers who doesn't qualify too well, but the thing about him is you can never counteract the race. He makes up places very gradually. Well, the 142 driver lives by the data, as the team does. That's going to be up the inside into Albiata 2. And when the end sees the doorways open, he's got the grip on the inside. And well, now can he get the deal done in towards turn number 10? He's going to come across. Veerbold's still there. And Hoffman there, lovely move. A very brave one at that. And that is the Drain Hoffman we know. As he makes his way down, in the end, he read the situation and said, right, I'm 90% certain I can make this work. And this Veerbold does something crazy. And in the end, will Drain Hoffman now up into 8th place in the club class. Philip Harris is his next target, who just made his way through the bottom of the camera, and that is for 7th place. He's now chasing. But as Veerbold finds that Cardozo's come past him as well, we'll shoot at Cardozo right now. He's following Hoffman. I suspect Hoffman's going to look in his rearview mirrors and think to himself, I might need to let that pro driver go soon, because I think Cardozo's going to be coming at him, and he dives up the inside there. My goodness, shoot at Cardozo right now. He sees the doors open, and to be fair, Hoffman in the air, that's a very smart drive from Hoffman as well, to see it coming from about 200 metres out and just simply go, you know what, I'm going to let him go, I'm not going to fight it. But meanwhile, Thomas Weston's had a bit of a poor run, coming out of at turn number 15. He's still battling with Martin Brandon. He comes into the pit lane. I suspect there's some damage on that car. Daniel Page, he's chasing after. Mark Collicott here for 37th place and trying to take that place back. But as we leave them for a brief month, this is Max Dean trying to go round the outside of Eddie Veerbold, and in the end by going so deep at turn number 1, that's only going to cost him time as they now romp their way in towards turns 2 and 3. And unfortunately that's not going to work out for him. But as they continue to fight each other in the club class, it's getting very tight there in the run of what is 7th all the way through to 11th place. Well, you can see there a little bit of a peak from Shucksmith, and Shucksmith right now just does not have any pace in that Ferrari. The problem he's got is as much as he wants to make moves, that Ferrari is not giving him anything back. That is a bit of a problem with Ferrari. It is a car you do have to work within a very tight window with the car. And well, what do we mean by a window essentially? All these cars, they do have ideal operating conditions in terms of not just the setup of the car, but tyre temperatures and also the way you drive it. The problem is some cars are much more sensitive. You start to overdrive it, or you start to push those tyre temperatures a little bit too high, or you go to a circuit that just does not allow the car to get its strengths out of it, it does start to struggle. And I think that's what we see for Shucksmith's Ferrari right now. It wants to go quick, but the problem is it's on a circuit where it doesn't have the ability to do so. That Ferrari does have a very interesting gearbox, whereby its stick gear is so tall that they don't really use it, even on the short stack setups, where you've got very tight gear ratios. Normally 5th gear is as far as you go in that Ferrari, and I think that's what's holding Shucksmith back at the moment. I don't think he can carry enough speed in the gearing of the car to be able to attack into the next bend. But of course, we do have this very close club class as well, and Maxime right now, we're a little bit deep here, and again, you'll see Shucksmith gets so close as they make the way out of the corner. We run them on the dashboard here, now picking up the speed, but as he does so, watch, they're all in the draft to each other, but this Ferrari in the tow is quite quick. But look how that gap is just gradually opening little by little here, and Shucksmith right now, he's only when he gets to the second half of the gear, now he's building up the speed here. Veerbold goes defensive, Dean on the right, and was coming into the braking zone. Well, it's going to be Shucksmith looking around the outside, and Dean in the end braking quite early there. He's going to give Shucksmith the opportunity to take this 10th place back in club class, and it's a good move from Shucksmith. Moves forward, Dean being very respectful, but I think perhaps leaving the door a bit too wide open there, and Eddie Veerbold's wounded Mercedes right now, Sands upon it, is definitely looking worse for wear, but he's going to get it to the pit stop. He does not want to come in for that fast repair, and that's understandable, because to do so, to have an extra stop, is going to completely ruin his race today. As we come back to Bradley Setters, we're right now running in 11th place, but the problem is he's got a company from behind, not in front, and that company is Intercompany. It's Kyle Roy chasing after him, and Bobby Moss is closing. So something tells me that Kyle Roy might be wanting to make a little bit more headway here, and I think he's trying to send the message to the 336 driver, which is, can you politely just turn the pace up a little bit? I think Setters is pushing, to be fair. I don't think he's being lazy out the circuit or running at 90%. I think he's running at about 99, but Kyle Roy here, I think, has got other ideas as they make the way down the start for the straight, and next this is what with Simworks driver standing nice and close here. In fact, as they come down towards the braking zone, he's going to look to the outside, he's going to switch it to the inside, throws the dummy here as they make the way in towards San Donato, and Roy there, they're going to be too wide coming up the hill. Brilliant racing between these two, but Setters saw it coming in the end and said, right, if you're going to try to send me for a loop, tell you what, try this, we'll go inside to outside and see how you like it. And as a result, Setters holds on, but Kyle Roy now definitely knowing he's going to be losing time here as we look back for the rear of your 11th place runner, and we'll go towards the end of the opening 20 minutes. The battles may have calmed down in terms of the packs are fighting, but we still got plenty more battling to come as Eddie Veerbold makes his way into the pit lane out McConaughey booth window. He has got the distance to be able to make his way into the pit window, so therefore that will be a fast repair on the car, and he'll get some fuel in, some fresh tyres, and he will complete his one and only mandatory stop. We are expecting pit stops for fuel. and changing tyres entirely optional. And to be fair, there is no mandatory requirement to pit. If you think you can get away with it, you are allowed to try and no-stop the race. However, it's not advised, given the fuel tank normally means you can only go a maximum of 50, as in 50 minutes out of our 60 minutes available. But as Roy continues to push after, flashing the headlights there, and I think what he's trying to say right now is, I want to come through. But meanwhile, he will hold up a second. What is Villa Catonen doing over there? That's not the way to go through turn 12 into 13. He's had a mistake of some description. Now, has he been forced out there or not? But that is your interleader, and suddenly, for Kyle Roy, the chase for the interlead is going to become a lot more realistic, and the Beowulf Racing Team driver right now, he's going to have Charlie Walker dive up his inside there, and Walker simply goes, well, if you're going to go down the order, you're going to go down a bit more. Catonen with his headlights flashing there, I think he's had an altercation with somebody over this, and well, I don't think he's too impressed by what's happening at the moment, as Kyle Roy meanwhile now back in the draft here as they make the way down the start-finish straight. But as they do, we jump on board with Roy. Now, can he clear Setters this time? He will be looking up the road and see that Catonen's almost in sight now. Onto the brakes he goes. Roy goes for it again here on the inside. Gets his nose a little bit ahead. And that is going to be the difference there. Setters immediately gives up the chase that time. As we've got drivers coming into the pits, we have Abasek and Prague coming in. So therefore, it does mean the pit window is well open. And we are seeing drivers now go for the undercut strategy. And normally a lot of the pro drivers do say you don't want to do the undercut, you want to do the overcut, you want the lightest possible car as long as possible. So therefore you get greater lap time. The problem is when drivers have lost quite a bit over the course of the day, particularly if you're Arno Pro, for example, you're going to risk it. The undercut can work, particularly if your rivals all end up fighting each other. But Kyle Roy, they're making a clean move on Bradley Setters for 11th place. And now, with 2.2 seconds to Villa Catonen, he will go on the chase. But Dwayne Hoffman looking for a move here on Philip Harris, trying to take home what will be that 7th place on the road in club class. Remember, Prague is into the pit lane, so therefore now we've got the added conundrum of strategy. But Hoffman trying to go outside to inside, almost there. But despite the lack of a front bumper, Philip Harris is not giving up right now as they come down towards turn number 4, and Hoffman thinks, no, I'm not going to try and look at the inside of the next chicane. Instead, I'm just going to harass him and try to hurry him up. And Ashley Shucksmith queues up behind as we jump aboard with the 142 and coming down the hill in towards the right into left complex. And as he makes his way onwards here, well, Hoffman's going to be thinking as well, do we now have to go use that strategy to make these places, or are we in a good position? It's always a fault between these drivers. Strategy can always unlock some more positions. To see what comes there, as meanwhile Bradley Setters giving up some places there coming out of the final quarter and losing out to Adam Smith and Bobby Moss. I wonder what's happened, as meanwhile I believe as we just cut away from Hoffman there was a mistake coming out of turn number 9 for what was Philip Harris, and that mistake enabled Hoffman to take the place off him. In fact, Harris right now, as we come back to him, the Eurotitans endurance driver being sent down the field more and more. This is not a happy moment, and we are going to get a quick replay of that moment, plus a couple other ones very shortly. And in fact, I believe we are going to start to get those replays now, including what was the big moment for Villa Catonen. But not before we do see a little more action here, and Dwayne Hoffman being passed by Daniel Page. Page on the recovery drive. Well, he's now going to move his way up into 28th overall. As behind, well, Sonny, the battling all erupts, or does it? No, because Philip Harris comes into the pit lane. So he releases Ashley Shucksmith, and as they make the way on down the start for this straight, well, we can see Hoffman tucking into the draft of Page as much as possible, pulling out a little bit there to say to him, I'll be coming for you if you don't get a move on. And Mark Collicott looks up the inside of Shucksmith. Shucksmith gives him the space. Well, Collicott surely will get this done quite quickly. In fact, no, he won't. Shucksmith right now on the inside here into turn number 2. Collicott trying to go outside to inside. He will get through in the end, but not without losing a bit of time. But Shucksmith making sure to put up his guard a little bit and say to him, I'm not just going to roll over for you. And, well, Shucksmith right now tucks back into Collicott, and Collicott will be given the hurry up there to make some progress. And speaking of a hurry up, this has not worked out for Mikhail Abasek. Went for the pit stop with only 20 minutes of the race complete. He's coming right behind Max Dean. He's got to now fight his way through. And well, he's had past Sean Clark already. So as they come down the hill, understandably, Dean is now going to be really a key here for whether Abasek's undercut works or not. He runs a bit wide to the gravel. And Abasek here goes around the outside. He immediately has to do it. He has to risk it all now. And he'll make that place. Sean Clark, meanwhile, going on the attack here, heading up the hill. And Dean offline. He continues to be offline as Clark much tighter coming up the hill. And well, he's got that confidence in the rear end of the McLaren, but that confidence is not paying off, as in the end he does fall back a little bit. But we are going to fall back in time and take a look back at some key moments only moments ago, including what exactly happened to Villa Catonen from the lead of the Interclass. So this was Katonen by himself, made his way down through turn number 12. Now, as he did so, well, how did he end up on the grass? He took a lot of inside curve there on the exit, and I think too much steering lock, got the power down, and the rear of the car let go, and he tried to get it a spin back in a straight line. He overloaded the rear right tyre, but the car refused to budge, and as a result, he lost a lot of time there and has worn that rear right tyre down quite aggressively. He's going to be careful that going forward. He might have to consider now protecting his tyres even more. Now, we had that. We also had this big month for Eddie Fearbold. Only months later, well, Fearbold running in 11th place. I do believe he'd come into the pits and got the repair work done on the car, and also his mandatory stop, and all that repair work wasn't for nothing in the end. He just missed the tyre barrier there. That would have been a bit of a scary boat, and the team would have been going, Eddie, we've just repaired the car, we don't need you bruising it again. But thankfully, the pro did avoid the barrier there, but an easy mistake to make on cold tyres coming out of turn number 6. We also did have this big moment for what was the battle between Dwayne Hoffman and Philip Harris, and this was making the way down the start-finish straight. And of course, it all began with a bit of a side-by-side battle going through turns 1, 2 and 3, and Harris was not backing out in this battle. He was staying side-by-side all the way up the hill, and in the end, as they exited turn number 3, it was going to be Harris who just managed to outrun the Lamborghini of Hoffman. But there was then a mistake for Harris, and this is where the move did change. And this was going through Arrabbiata 1, it leads towards Arrabbiata 2, and Harris in the end clean run through 1, so it was in the exit 2, he got it wrong, and just carried a bit too much speed, went to the gravel, and Dwayne Hoffman in the end said, right, that's your lot, I'm going to go up the inside here. Got that move done just about. Harris tried to fight it back, but Hoffman in the end simply said to him, no, can do, sir, that's going to be mine. But unfortunately, we did have this happen for David Biggerdike only months later. And this was your DCW Racing Porsche driver, making his way through turns 2 and 3. And as he did so, the rear of the car letting go there. And that's happened to several drivers today. And he adds himself to the list of drivers who've lost it coming out of turn number 3 as he briefly bumps the barrier. I think it's a bit of frustration there. But without further ado, we head back to your live racing. And as we do come back, we'll still plenty more racing to come, and we're not even halfway done as they do make the way on around still. But we do have this battle for the lead of the club class. In fact, let's show you those class standings. We haven't shown you those all day today. And here you can see Adam Lynch still ahead of Steve Hughes and Denny Ploger. The gap between the trio is currently 1.9 seconds separated them all in totality, and Jack Giles is 5 seconds behind. Now, keep in mind, they have yet to pit. We do have some pit stops that have played out in club. The highest placed club pit stopper is none other than Arno Prague. And here he is, and he's trying to pick his way past Martin Brandon. In the Audi is Brandon on the left of your picture, hidden by the time tower, but there he now comes into view. And once they make the way through, Prague's now having to fight his way forward. Has any of us pitted in club class? No, it is only Prague who has taken his strategic stop so far. But the problem is he's pitted, gone for the undercut, and he's now having to cut his way past so many drivers who have yet to pit. But it's always the risk that comes with the territory, and Brandon right now has no obligation to give up the spot. And Prague's going to look up the inside. And you may be sat there wondering, well, why exactly would Brandon perhaps fight? Why would a driver fight with someone who has pitted? Well, not necessarily for championship points in the club class specifically, but remember, we do have a team championship, and a lot of these teams are going to be fighting each other. So therefore, Brandon could be sacrificing his race a little bit for the better good of the team, because we know that MJK SimRacing have definitely got their sights set on the top 5 of the season in the team championship. The Access SimSport teams have got a crown they want to also take for themselves. So it always gives or takes, and therefore that's why sometimes you can't always count on, just because you've already got a pit stop done, the driver in front of you is going to let you go. As they make the way through right now, Arno Prague's going to have to find a way to make sure that Martin Brandon does let this go at some point. Well, into the braking zone there for turn number 12, that's not going to work, as meanwhile, look, our other set has just overtaken Dwayne Hoffman coming down the hill. In towards turn number 15, Hoffman letting that one go, and I think Hoffman really playing the game, which is just simply let everyone else in the different class go, but as soon as I get up to the club class driver, make sure I'm all over the back of like a bad rash. But we look to Jack Giles, and he's got some pressure from Ross Young. Now, how will the club driver deal with the pressure from the Inter driver? Well, the answer is, I think he's going to have it dictated to him very shortly, because Young right now is looking very quick. Remember, Ross Young did start from the pit lane, and therefore he's making his way up the order, but Young will have a pit stop at some point. He's going to have to serve. But leaving them behind, here is your club lead battle, and this is Lynch versus Hughes as they roll out the hill. And Adam Lynch right now trying to hold on as they come through the right-hander at turn number 10. And Well, off camera, I do believe Mark Collicott's just been involved in a bit of an incident, so we're going to get a replay of that when we can. Some drama for Collicott, but no such drama here for Lynch, although I think the Privateers team will be thinking, what do we need to do to stop Steve Hughes from getting closer, because Hughes is growing in pace as this race is going on, and his patience right now is definitely there extending, because I think Hughes is just simply saving fuel behind Lynch at the moment, or trying to, and Lynch is going to have to either come into the pits, or alternatively he's going to have to think alternatively about what would be the best way to do it. Does he just simply extend the stint and force Hughes to have to reveal his hand first and then immediately come into the pits the lap after? But that's the thing, when you're the leading driver in a battle, you have the right to dictate who comes in first, but you don't necessarily have the right to dictate what the driver behind you does. As he heads down the straight, of course, he could duck to the pit lane at any point, and Hughes will then have to react. Of course, if Hughes comes in behind him, then Lynch knows what the game plan is and then what he's got to do. So there's always an advantage to being the lead driver in the group, and I don't think they would want to pit right now, either driver, because they would be coming out in the thick of many a club driver further behind. Now, Mark Collicott is in the pit lane as I look out my content booth window, so that's a bit of a sad scene there for the DCW racing team. Meanwhile, we look up to Richard Simnor, currently running third in Pro and third overall. He's still got Nils Bakaga behind him. And, well, the NJP Performance Drive is trying to push on against the DCW Racing Blue Corvette. But as Denny Ploger comes into the pit lane, well, he's going to go down the order. And, in fact, I wonder where Ploger has decided to just split this race in half. Here he comes out the pit, and there's Max Dean, and now Dean comes on past there. Where is Arno Prague? And well, the MJK Sim Racing driver makes it out the road, and Arno Prague comes out behind. So that is a swap there between two teammates, and Prague's undercut strategy has not worked out. That has cost him, I think, 6 seconds in total if my mental mathematics is correct, and that's where he's had to battle his way past other club drivers. So it does mean now, as pit stops really start to play out here for the club drivers, MJK Sim Racing didn't get it right with their 183 driver of Prague. They seem to have got it right with Ploger. So what can they do? Can they find a way into the podium positions? Can they make it a double podium? Well, that's what we're going to have to find out, as I believe we've had a bit of a oh, hold up, that's Charlie Walker. I was going to say we've had a bit of a moment. That's more than a bit of a moment for the relentless racing driver. That is an absolute trip to the gravel trap and beyond, as he brings himself back on. Jared Love comes on through there. Love still on that recovery drive up into 16th place. And well, remembering the fact that the majority of the top 20 have yet to pit, so therefore it really is a good gauge of how far he's come. Stuart Cardozo off camera just past Stephen Kershaw, so it does mean that Cardozo has woven his way between what is two interdrives there of Young and Kershaw. You can see him head there. He's not getting way down the start finish straight, but definitely a bit of an error for Charlie Walker. We will get a replay of that when we can. But with Ross Young just up the road, and here is Jack Giles under pressure from him. Well, the battle for 21st place rages on, but understandably, I think Giles does not need this right now. What he really needs is some clear space to be able to chase down Steve Hughes, the second place runner in club, who is now 5 seconds up the road, and Giles' pace has had to dip slightly to make sure that Young does not get past him. Now, at this point, you've got to be wondering whether actually it would be better to let the inter-driver go. Not because he can't battle with him, but why battle with him would be the argument, because you're losing time. All there, I think Young right now is enjoying himself, where he's battling with a club driver or a driver of his own class. Coming down the hills with Ryan Bob with the 228 drive from Scotland, and as he rolls his way on towards Arabiati, you can see there, look at the positioning of this McLaren, and that's the thing about this car, it is so capable on those quick fire direction changes. Low speed direction change is a weakness of this car, but he goes a bit too wide there coming out of Arabiati too. That's the understeer there from the dirty head, the aero wash of Giles' car, but Young right now, you can really feel he's in control here in this McLaren. It's really in its element. The Porsche is no slouch around Mugello, but it doesn't quite have that quick fire direction change that McLaren has to it, given the fact this car is aerodynamically pitched forward over the front axle. All the way to the rear, it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive, but the way this car has been set up, it really can be quick fire in terms of when you go from left into right or right into left, you just carry just a little bit more speed compared to your competitors. But coming in towards the braking zone, and right now, no change. Just going to have to wait. Meanwhile, Bradley Setters battling side by side with Brad Pickett. It's the battle of the two Brads. And right now, it's going to be your pro drive. Tries to get the upper hand, but Pickett's on the inside. And here they go, too wide through turns 2 and 3. And well, the Ferrari driver here from St. Clark James with DXD. Well, he's trying to make that move stick. He's going to go all the way towards turn before here. It's not over yet. And right now, in the battle for Brad's supremacy, Brad Pickett gets his elbows out there as Setters goes to turn in, realises he can't. And Pickett takes the place of 13th. Well, there's no points to that. It's just brownie points between them. Pickett takes the place, and Settersdale will tuck it behind him. Probably thinks to himself, okay, what's my next plan? I think the answer to that is just simply wait and see if there's an opportunity a bit later on, because otherwise they're going to be costing each other so much time, to the point whereby I think they'll get embroiled in that battle and forget everything else. But we won't forget that anytime soon. 27 minutes still remain in this race, and I believe, oh, what's happened there? That is Ash Coutland. Coutland's gone wide out to turn number 11, and that mistake has cost him 2 places. Villa Catona's been released, so has Kyle Roy. So you're into the top 2 now, ahead of the 8th place pro driver. And Coutland there with a rare mistake, but when they do happen, we definitely try to catch them. As he comes up towards turn number 15, right now your 363 driver, I think, is going to be wanting to regroup and understand what exactly went wrong. Well, we want to understand that as well, but not before we do see Schubert Cardozo launch as well at the inside of Jack Giles. Going to be for 22nd place, and the InterRacing team driver right now. I can tell you one thing, he's enjoying himself out there. It may have all gone wrong on the open lap, but you know that when Schubert's having a fun day, because he is sending moves left, right and centre, and indeed I would definitely say in some respects he'd be making moves that even Ayrton Senna would be proud with. But as he charges his way around the circuit, well, right now his next target will be Ross Young, and he's only 1.8 seconds up the road for that 21st place spot. But we're going to take a quick trip back in time and see what exactly happened for a few of our drivers, including a big moment for Charlie Walker. Now, this was Walker making his way through turn 15. He was in the gravel trap, but how did he get there? And the answer is the rear end of the car let go and it rolled backwards. I think then he got the reverse gear straight on to get the car out of the way and make sure he did not add himself into a multi-car collision. We had this for Daniel Page. A lap later, this was the Daniel Newman Racing red car. Going through turn number 3, and as it did so, went a little bit too wide there, and the car bounced around and went straight to the barrier, and at that point, that car in pieces on the front end, although able to keep it going, but a lot of damage to the front, no doubt about it. But then this was the big surprise. Ash Coupland having a mistake on lap 19, and this was going through turns 10 into 11, so what went wrong? Oh, the rear of the car was already letting go, and then he hit the sausage curb, and that unsettled the front end even more, and at that point, he had to get it back together. Did well to stop that from spinning around, so well galloped by Coupland, but the damage was done. The fact he let the 2 into drivers on through. With that, we also take a quick look back to what happened to Philip Harris on lap 16. And this was your Porsche driver, had a new front bumper put on the car, and as he made his way through turns 10 and 11, went a bit deep at 10, tried to reset the line at 11, but was so tight in the end that the car ran wide, and I think hitting the sausage curve, something's broken on that car, and it went to the pit lane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live racing. So Harris having a bit of a woeful moment there. Indeed, turn 11 catching out a couple of drivers, but still, we've got plenty more to catch. On lap 21, we've got a few more to come. Raz Harper is in. So we do look there. You can see him behind the safety glass. So Harper decides he's done enough. And, well, he's the first driver inside our top 20 overall to make his way into the pit lane. But no sign of anybody else coming in, including your race leader of Samantha Town Racing's Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. And the only member of STR on the grid today, Leon Seeley, not able to make this round. But we hope to see Leon back on the grid next time out at Fuji. And, indeed, it's not quite the same when you don't have both cars there. But right now, your 3.29 driver, he's opened up that gap to Brandon Dyer to 4.7 seconds. So it does seem as though this race is in his control, at least at the moment. And meanwhile, Richard Simnor falling back a little bit, but also a bit of traffic in front of him to deal with. That is Prague and Brandon together. And Arno Prague right now, he's going to be absolutely cursing his stars because he's going to look around the outside of Brandon. He's got blue flags to respect, and Simnor right now, you can see he's very tentative there. And when the end Prague comes across, doesn't realise that Simnor's there, and then does realise it, backs off. Now here comes not Schubert Cardozo, that is going to be Ben Woodgate trying to come from the blue flags, and Prague will leave the door open there, and well, Woodgate goes in the end, and Prague opens the steering up as much as possible in order to make sure it was very clear that he can come through, but that's all between them. And meanwhile, that was a car on the inside there. I was thinking to myself, did I just see things? No, that was Christopher Petty, who was passing the inside of turn 15, goes a lap down, albeit by a mistake there, or by his own hand, I believe, coming through the corner. We'll try and get a replay of that later on, but Christopher Petty there, parking on the inside of the corner, and thankfully clear of the field. Schubert Cardozo is into the pit lane for his strategic stop, and meanwhile, Petty carries on. But coming back to the Simnor situation, Ben Woodgate now has definitely closed up ground, but Woodgate has got to clear Martin Brandon. But Arno Prague, who is a lap down this pair, but he'll be then unlapping himself when they come into the pits. You definitely have to feel for your MJK SimRacing trial, because this strategy has just gone from good to bad to disastrous. And Brandon Still proving to be a forward on his side as they come down towards turn number 6. But we look back from the rear of the Audi R8 Evo 2 LMS, the only Audi on this grid. And, well, Martin Brandon definitely making sure the V10 screams just for a little bit longer. And it will be a sad day when we finally get to see the retirement of this V10 engine from motorsport. That day is coming soon, but whilst we can enjoy it, well, we're definitely going to love it as he makes his way up the hill and over in towards turn number 10. As he accelerates his way out of the corner, and right now Prague staying with him. Will probably be able to look for a move this time. Brandon goes defensive again. Well, as they come down onto those brakes, it seems as though Prague right now wanting that inside line, but Brandon knows that, and he's just simply going to keep it nice and parked as they come up towards turn number 15. In terms of battles up the road, well, Villa Katonen has Cole Roy for close company. This is the interlead battle, and Roy's going to look up the inside. They've yet to pit as well, so right now Katonen has been losing time little by little with that last lap. He lost 3/10, and Roy now right on a mission here to try and make some magic happen. But coming up through the sweeping sequence of turns 13 and 14 as off camera, Prague has just found his way past Brandon. We'll get a replay of that later on if we can. Well, Katonen right now, this is not where he wants to be when he wants that first win of the season. And well, right now, Kyle Roy trying to make sure the only winners in the Interclass this season are all Scottish. But I think the finish drive here of Katonen has something to say as he immediately comes into the pit lane. So Katonen gives up track position to Roy. Now Roy is going to need to put in a qualifying lap or two here as Ben Woodgate's into the pit lane. And these fuel tanks, they are starting to run dry. But Woodgate being the highest place driver to come in, he came in from behind Richard Simnor. So that is a strategic gamble there, I suspect, to see if he can undercut Simnor by a lap or two. And we'll wait and see what happens there. Steve Hughes, meanwhile, there he is in the orange and black three-wheeler race from a UK sim racing car. The Lando Norris dedicated livery machine. He's still chasing after Adam Lynch. Between them is Eddie Fearbold, who is a lap down as Lynch is into the pit lane. Hughes goes another lap. So we're seeing a split here. A lot of drivers now having to come in, I suspect, well, they've not been able to fuel save as much. They can't make the fuel tank go a 23rd lap. Whereas those who have been fuel saving are able to do so. So Sunny, this race could be completely turned on its head. And Arno Prague is still trying to fight his way past Martin Brandon. So he thought he got it ahead. And in fact, no, he has not got ahead. They have continued to fight hard. And Prague's still trying to fight his way onwards. Well, we'll keep an eye on this for a little bit. We are keeping an eye on what's going on in the pit lane as well. As we are right into the midst of pit stop season. And well, behind them is Daniel Page. And, well, that's not James Fraser. That's a DDK racing car. But Prague trying to go around the outside. And rolling his way off the corner there. Brandon getting the better traction on the inside. And the Audi, in the end, is not going to quite beat the Porsche on initial acceleration. But it will as it goes into third and fourth gear. And Prague falls back again. Brilliant fighting between these two. And Martin Brandon right now just absolutely digging in his heels. Well, for how much longer will he be able to do so? Arno Prague here has got the patience of a saint, but even the most patient drivers in the end will find their limits. And heading down that start-finish straight, he's back into the draft, making his way onwards for his 8th place in club class. Plenty of cars in the pit lane, getting ready to make the way out. Villa Katonen's left the pit lane, he's a bit up the road, as is a couple of other drivers. Down the hill they come into the braking zone as Brandon Dye, Elliot Court and Cole Wright and Ashley Coutland are into the pit lane. And probably looking down the outside, that's not going to work. But we must come to the question of Coutland. So he's in, and as he makes his way down, Cole Wright just in front of him. We look to the blimp camera. Where is Villa Katonen? Now, I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, here is Katonen being picked up now. He comes on through turns 13 and 14, so this could be quite close. Court is leaving the pit lane, and very shortly, I suspect, we will start to see Cole Roy make his way on down pit road to exit it. Katonen goes a little bit deep there on entry into turn number 15. Car off the road there. I believe that is Max Dean taking a trip off the road. Where is Roy? He's making his way. He's almost to the pit limiter line. This is going to be close. The Axis Sinsport driver right now bringing himself back up to speed. Here he goes then as he builds up momentum. There's Fearbold in front. Then there's Ross Charlotte. Then there is going to be Raz Harper. But where is Katonen? Katonen comes over the hill. I think Roy's just got ahead here. It's going to be so tight between them. It's literally a second swap in the pit lane. And Cole Roy is going to take what we believe is the effective interlead here as they head through turns 2 and 3. And Roy has absolutely nailed that on strategy. Well done to the Exit Simspot and Simworks team. They have called it right. They went the extra lap. And Villa Katonen in the end with a second longer stop for fuel. Well, end-to-end in the pit lane, they're practically identical. So credit where it's due to the Beowulf Racing team. They did nail that pit stop. And in fact, Roy had the longer pit stop. He took a little bit longer to get out of his pit box in the end. So if Roy had not hurried any longer, I think it would have been a situation where they would have been completely side by side through the opening bend. But there we go, Roy now into the effective lead of the interclass. As more pit stops are coming, we do have Milton Tomlinson-Dennis in, Richard Simler's in as well. There's a concrete wall there, but we promise you the car was on the other side of it. Unfortunately, limitation on our camera angles on the start-finish straight. But Moss comes on around into leader at the moment, but he was running third, and this will be into the pit lane here. The SimRacing Collective Esports driver cannot make that fuel tank go any longer, but Brandon Dyer has had to tow to the pit. Brandon Dyer, who was chasing down second place. Well, I think he's had a mistake somewhere. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can, as we see Ross Young. Well, he's carrying on with Raz Harper for close company behind, but we believe Young does have a pit stop to serve at some point. We do not believe this is his effective position right now. We believe he's actually chasing a top 5, if not at least a top 10 here today in the interclass. And I think he's going to peel into the pits very shortly. As he comes on through, will make his way on down start finish straight. Yep, he comes into the pits, and that will release a couple of other drivers, including Raz Harper. As Elliot Court makes his way on past our camera, and then here is Harper right now with Carl Wright and Vela Kotonen giving chase, and they will return to the lead of the class. But as they come down, here is Bobby Moss out the pit lane. He's not far behind. In fact, Moss has gained a huge amount of time on that opening stint. That was a very short pit stop. He's gained 2.5 seconds in the pits versus Ryan Kotonen. Keep your eyes out for Moss here. I wonder whether on that first stint they've intentionally told him drive at about 85%. But meanwhile, we can't draw on that for too much longer because Brad Pickett and Jared Love now are fighting hard as they come down in towards turn at number 1, and that's going to be Pickett running very deep, and Jared Love's going to take 5th place back in the interclass, just like that, a click of the fingers, it's done, and well, my goodness, what a swap around there, as they all continue on. There's Dwayne Hoffman in amongst them all. I think he's been involved in some sort of incident at some point. We didn't quite see what happened there. Meanwhile, Martin Brandon being passed by Arno Prague. Is Prague finally getting this move done? This is the 5th time he's attempted it. He's got ahead. Now, will Brandon be able to stay with him all the way down the straight? No, they will not, because Martin Brandon comes in for his one and only stop. We thought we had a stop to take, and he does take it, but what a battle there, and Brandon costing Prague a huge amount of time in the process, but a strategic call for the Axis SimSport with SimWorks team to try and sacrifice his race to make sure that Prague could not get back up the order, and the damage has been massive to MJK Sim Racing's driver because of the fact he is now the best part of 14 seconds behind the top 4 of the club class, when he would have been within 5 seconds of them if he had not been caught up in that battle for so long. But a very respectful battle, but a costly one. Meanwhile, in the pit stops, this is no lie, your eyes do not deceive you. Steve Hughes has jumped Adam Lynch as a result of the pit stop. So Hughes came in a lap after Lynch, and he's got ahead. Lynch is behind him by the best part of 8 tenths there. So right now Hughes has got to try and hold on, and it's not long to go in this race. 15 minutes left on the clock. But before we carry on talking about the theme of what's changed, we need to take a look back in time for some big moments, and in particular, what happened to Brandon Dyer after his pit stop. And here's a replay, ladies and gentlemen, to explain. So this was Dyer, and already returned to the circuit. He's had it off. He's had it off at Arrabbiata, and I think in the end the car is damaged. Oh, the rear of the car's let go. There's been a brush with the wall. That rear right suspension is damaged, and we go back in time, and this is what happened to Brandon Dyer. So, making his way in towards Arrabbiata 1, being chased at the time by Charlie Walker, lost the rear end, it completely snapped on him there, and then rolled to the tyre barrier, and that was Brandon Dyer's race over. So, cold tyres, a rear end that was loose, and it all fell apart just like that, and we had to tow to the bits quite quickly after that. We also, of course, did have this brilliant battle with what was, well, Carl Roy making his way on past Brandon Dyer, so this was him catching up to Dyer returning, and well, Roy just being confirmed in the replay footage of being just ahead of Vela Kotonen, with Kotonen trying to stay with him there as both drivers came through the scene of the instant. But we did have, this was a bit of a moment for Max Dean. And this was Dean coming in towards turn number 15, and as he came on through the corner, very wide on entry there, and with 2 wheels on the entry curbing on the outside, we'll read the runoff area, we should say, the Italian flag sending on around, sadly. But then after that, well, we did have a bit of a moment for Brad Pickett, and he made his way on past Charlie Walker down the start finish straight, because of course Walker was coming out the pit lane. But what exactly did happen to Brad Pickett at the end of the start finish straight? Because Jared Love was behind him, looking to do battle for 5th place in the interclass. Pickett went onto the brakes, and went quite late onto the brakes, went very deep, and the car tried to do the switcheroo on him on the back end, and in the end, Jared Love just simply tucked up the inside and said, "Thank you very much, I'll take that off of you if you don't mind." But with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't mind, we're heading back to our live racing. Well, now, as Jared Love's made that progress, we do come back to the battle for the lead of the club class. 13 minutes left, and Steve Hughes and Adam Lynch, 8 tenths between them. Denny Ploger, well, strategy has worked out for one of the MJK Sim Racing team. He has definitely made a lot of ground as the 108 driver. And he's now into third in class with Jack Giles chasing. So, Ploger's made it work out. He did go for quite the effective undercut. He pitted on lap 16. Giles pitted on lap 23. The longest distance you could really go on the fuel tank. But the problem is that Ploger in the end really put it all together in the laps he bought himself. So, good bit of work there for the 108 driver. It's unfortunate we may not see a double podium today for MJK Sim Racing because that was their target with the undercut strategy. And were prior to being brought out behind Martin Brandon, who just refused to give a single inch, let alone a mile. But as Ploger continues to chase, his lap time's in the same postcode as Lynch and Hughes, so therefore we could see a three-way fight for the win in the club class. It will come down to consistency and if anybody makes any mistakes. But Kyle Roy and Ville Katonen, there they are once again. You're not experiencing deja vu as they make their way through turns 10 11. That same camera angle used in the replay footage we had of them only moments ago. Oh, that's Ville Katonen! Katonen is around! I don't believe it! And the Beowulf Racing Team driver, normally known for being so cool-headed in these high-pressure situations, he gets it wrong coming out of turn number 11, and he loses out to Adam Smith, who goes up the inside. And it means now Bobby Moss is up in the second place in the interclass as well. You wouldn't have seen Bobby Moss potentially come through, but there he is. And now for Moss, what can he do at this point? Can he chase down Kyle Roy? We're wondering whether Moss has got an ace up his sleeve here because we think he was holding his pace back in the opening stint to be able to go what was all that distance. But as he makes his way down the start-finish straight, he has got time to do this. He flashes headlights there to Eddie Theobald and says to him, look, I am coming through. Be very clear about that. And remember, the rules and regulations of this series, and particularly at SimRacing International, blue flags, all it means is if you're about to go a lap down, you drive predictably, you do not fight the driver who's trying to come and pass, but you do not need to get out the way. It's not Formula 1 rules, whereby it's the responsibility of the lead lap car to overtake you in a safe manner. So therefore, they're expected to pull an overtake on you, whereas you're expected just to hold your line. Of course, a number of drivers do lift off into braking zones or down straights to enable that change to happen more easily, but it really is the responsibility of the lead lap driver. It's essentially endurance racing blue flag rules, whereby it's the car on the lead lap who's got to do all the hard work and you just simply got to help them out. But as we do look to Arno Proud on the back of Daniel Page, and right now trying to pick up 20 full plays overall. Well, Page has definitely had one of those races where things are just going backwards. They're going from what is not strength to strength, they're going from weakness to weakness, you could say. I don't think I've ever heard that saying, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to coin that one either, because it doesn't sound the greatest. But as they head down the straight, well, right now Prague will just chase down the Mercedes driver, and 9 at 5th place in the club class seems to be where he's settled into now, with Rob Gregg at 12 seconds behind. We haven't really talked too much about the Michelin Racing Club drive since the early stages, but to be fair to Rob Gregg, he's really snuck his way up the order today, and I think he's putting us a few surprises. He started 10th in class, and he just gradually made his way upwards. I don't think many are going to realise that Rob Gregg's going to finish 6th here. Indeed, it's almost as if you're going to be looking at the stands afterwards and go, how on earth did he get there? Well, the answer is he's just stayed out of trouble. He's not really fought anyone. He's just had a very quiet race. And Ashley Shucksmith, by contrast, in 7th place at the moment, well, he may have started in 13th place, but he's really put together a solid performance. He's not made too many mistakes, but he's also been in the thick of the fighting. And, well, James Fraser a bit further behind. He does let the Mercedes there of Elliot Court go on past, and the Moonshine Racing Club giant 8th place in club. I think thinks to himself one thing and one thing only at the moment, which is keep it on the road and get it to the finish. But speaking of things being on the road, here's a look at the inside for 12th place in club by Sean Clark. Looking at the inside of Max Dean, and Dean there gives him the space to cooperate, and Clark's going to take that place just like that. And in the end, the McLaren driver is going to bolt away here, and in good time as well, because as you can see them making their way down the start-finish straight, well, they do have a couple more cars trying to get involved, including, I do believe there, a Porsche that's wanting to make its way on past, albeit that's the 191, and trying to discern who that is. That's Christopher Petty, who's trying to unlap himself. Well, this is a little bit awkward, because you've got Petty, who's 15th in club, trying to unlap himself from other club drivers, and I don't think Clark wants to have that happen, but Max Dean has been put behind now, and Dean, I don't think we're too impressed in the fact that he is essentially being relegated back behind a lap-down club driver and being made to have to accept it in a crude way. As Ross Young, he queues on the back of all this, and he's on the lead lap in 17th place overall, 9th in Inter, and he's probably looking at us and thinking, how on earth am I going to pick my way through this? They need to be aware of me, and well, they will be aware of him, but the problem is I think they're choosing just to focus on their own race at the moment as Young comes down the hill. Right on board here, the Clarkson James Weir at DXT driver. I think the game plan is going to be essentially be patient and just try to pick them off one by one if you can. if he tries to do that, and I think he's going to have an opportunity here. He will be looking around the outside. Maxine sees him coming and says, right, you can have that, and you're going to be happy to tick one box off the list. But meanwhile, this will not be on his tick list until the very end. If he's going to tick it off, Adam Smith versus Villa Kotonen. Smith needs to hold on here for the final spot in the interclass podium. As we look to your class standings, he is 7.5 seconds away from Bobby Moss, so I don't think there's a question of the battle for second here. I think it's purely a battle for the final podium spot, as Kyle Roy is now laying down the pace and is in fact lapping 7 tenths a lap quicker than Bobby Moss. So Roy has found a bit of time over the last couple of laps, and I wonder if Roy perhaps has been saving up some steam to put the gap on. But it's battle Mercedes drivers and Villa Kotonen as they head in towards turn number 2. He needs redemption right now. That's going to be his fault after that spin. That definitely cost him the chance of chasing down the winner on Roy, and it's pushed him off the podium. Can he now get back onto the podium? Well, I don't think Smith's going to let this go very easily. Remember, Jared Love is closing on this very quickly. Love, just to put you in perspective, whereas for the most of the day, the interclass drivers have been set in 46s and 47s, Jared Love has been lapping in the 45s, and he's still doing so at the moment, if not the low 46s. So Jared Love, for what happened to him at the start of the race, that sends him all the way to the back of the field. He's almost on the back of this battle right now. You'll see there is a small speck in the rear TV camera inside Kotonen's car. That speck is Jared Love getting closer and closer, and they should put a subtitle there on that TV to say that cars may appear further than they seem, because that is the risk now for Kotonen. If he does not get this move on Smith soon, Jared Love's going to be there, and if Love can find a way onto the podium in this one, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I will go out there and say he is an early favourite for the championship. If you can recover from such a race as he's had today and be still on the podium, that is the stuff that champions are made of, and that's not to be unfair to the rest of the interclass, but Love will be making a statement. There he is in the rear of the picture in the DDK racing at Ford Mustang, and right now I suspect within 2 laps time he will be right in the toe of both of these Mercedes, as Kotonen right now just simply staying put and Adam Smith keeping him just at arm's length. But Eddie Theobald, meanwhile, just in front of all that going on. And you can see here the 152 privateer, he wants 9th place of Martin Brandon. And I don't think this is going to be easy as the battle of the 2 German marks gets underway. Brandon on the inside, Theobald on the outside. Onto the brakes they both go. And Theobald's going to try and scoop round the outside. Is it going to work? Not quite. And in the end, he's going to back off there as Brandon just simply keeps him at bay. But the lead lappers come onto the back of that battle soon. Smith versus Kotonen. And Kotonen's a lot quicker through San Donato Bend. He does know how to carry that momentum. And on paper, based on the lap times we have seen all the way through today, Kotonen is the quicker driver. But it's the mistakes that have really caught him out. And Adam Smith right now for Eurotitan's endurance, well, the converse is he's been living up to his team namesake. He's put on an endurance driver performance, which is you are the best driver who doesn't make mistakes. As that's a side-by-side battle there coming down through turn 6 to the 7. Theobald side-by-side with Brandon, and he's going to be on the inside into Arrabbiata. Does he clear Brandon? I think he does. And Eddie Theobald in the end gets that move done. We'll get a replay of how that all started very shortly. But Theobald there now up into 9th place in the club class. A critical moment. And now with the oncoming presence of Smith and Kotonen lap up, they will look. Oh my goodness, and Brandon gets it wrong at turn number 10, and Smith then goes into the side of him. The Eurotitan's endurance car loses front bumper, and Kotonen he's got to pounce this quick. Look at Love, he's right there behind, and Smith's race comes to an almost abrupt halt there as he does go wide. He knows he's got a car that's damaged, and well, as a result now the fight for the podium, it carries on here in Inter because it's Kotonen versus Love. 5 minutes to go, and Kotonen right now, he's not going to believe who's behind him. As you can see that Adam Smith is just trying to survive to the pit lane, and that was a huge moment. We're not quite sure how exactly it happened, but I can tell you one thing. What has happened now is completely flipped things upside down here in this fight for the final spot on that interclass podium. And with Love there, well, surely Jared Love's going to have a shot at this immediately as they make their way down the start finish straight. That's speed. The Mustang right now in the battle of V8s here today. It's American Muscle that's trying to prove its worth as they come on down. Looking one side than the other. Kotonen's always going to go defense to the inside, but Love decides, right, back it off, tuck in, go for the switchback. But Kotonen sees it coming and says he's not going to let him through, and as they roll their way on through, well, I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, because that rear wing on the back of the Mercedes says don't let this distract you, and it's definitely distracting me right now. And well, I think that's all part of the game plan. If he can get Jared Love to look at the rear wing and try to make him read it, he might make a mistake of according, might make a complete ham sandwich out of the braking zone, but not quite so right now. Jared Love hasn't got time for those things as he comes down the hill in towards turn number 6, and the DDK race that bot driver absolutely pushing here as they roll the way onwards, but right now no move coming. But as we do wait for that move to potentially come on the next instance of the attack, we do take a quick look back for what is, in fact, we're not going to step away, ladies and gentlemen, not for the brief moment. We were going to take a look back there to see how exactly it all went wrong for what was Smith, but I think we're going to just wait a little bit longer. We may have to come to that after the race if we do get time, because right now we don't want to leave this battle, given how close it's going to be at any moment. I think Jared Love will try and pull the trigger, and Eddie Fearbold here, he's a lap down, and Katonen looking to the inside, but Fearbold does not open the door up initially there. He does now, coming through the corner, and Love will be hoping, as he had to put the brakes on again now on corner X. I think the rear of the car was starting to lift up a little bit, and running into the ABS, but as Love comes out, now he's got Fearbold between himself and Katonen. That will open up the gap just a little bit. But as this battle builds, also there's this battle. This is for second in club. Well, goodness me, you have one battle come, they all come at once. It's like London buses as they make the way through turn number 10 in towards 11. Adam Lynch right now under pressure. Steve Hughes has walked away with the lead of the club class for now, but Adam Lynch is under huge pressure here to hold on, and Plöger trying to make it the runner-up spot today. Bound to see whether he can make that happen. Meanwhile, back to the front of the interclass we go, and with so little time left here, Villacatona try to hold on. 3 attempts is the delta, and Love right now inching closer, but with the interruption there, Fearbold on the previous lap, it's just simply held him back a little bit. That's not to be rude about Fearbold, to be fair. He was absolutely fair in the way he approached things. I don't think either driver could have a go at the lap down club driver, but the point is that right now Love lost a lap on that one. He's lost an opportunity as Adam Smith is into the pit lane. Look at my contact booth window, the damage, he can't carry on, it's holding him back. And Smith's race is all going to be in pieces, much like the car. And as a result now for Smith, he's going to have to see where he can get back out there and just get some points right at the very end. But it will not be the podium he was hoping for, not a top 5 either. But Katonen's still holding on for now as they head up the hill through turn at number 9. And well, right now, Katonen can do this. He will redeem himself, holding on to that podium and keeping the championship leader behind. But going the way through right into left. And right now, well, I think the 293, if it's going to come this move, he's got to be ready for it on the final lap. Oh, that's the car off the road there. Who's got it wrong? I think that's Jordan Butler who's missing the front bumper there. That was across the road. It was a purple bumper from the Full Tilt Virtual Motorsports, but Katonen just nailing his exits. That's all he's got to do at this point. He's now his corner exits, and he should be safe with the Mustang, but it will be that long start finish straight where the Mustang will have the legs, just that little bit versus the 6.3 litre V8 of the Mercedes. Indeed, both V8s here. More literage on the Mercedes, but he runs deep in towards turn 15, and it's going to be Love looking up the inside. Jared Love there tried to poke his nose in, but he didn't quite have the run, and now down the straight they come. One more lap potentially. I believe Milton Tomlinson-Dennis is on to the final lap. Have we got the white flag waving there? Yes, we have, as they make the way past, and Love right now too far back to go for the move here in towards turn number 1. And that attempt up the inside turn number 15. I think Katonen intentionally did go slightly deep there to slingshot off the corner, but also to see whether Love would fall for the trap of simply looking up the inside, and it worked out a treat for Katonen. So Katonen may have this under control now as they come through, but that rear tyre grip on both cars now is starting to go away. Denny Plöger meanwhile chasing on down Adam Lynch. They've got one more lap of their own to go, and it's so close between the two of them here, but as they head down the straight, 2 Porsches, 2 equal machines. It will come down to setup and driver. We believe they're running very similar rear wing and similar gearing, so it's all going to come down to who can get the most out of the car on this final turn of the circuit. But as the clock strikes 0, ladies and gentlemen, it does mean now we look back up to the very front of the field, and coming out to the final quarter was Spa-Francorchamps. You could say it was about the setup as much as it was a little bit of fortune, but here today he created his own fortune. Milton Tomlinson-Dennis makes it 3 in a row over and in pro for Samantha Tan Racing. What a win! And Richard Simnor will come on home to take second place at DCW Racing Blue with his best result of the season thus far. You can see how much it means to him. Ben Woodgate returns to the podium. The Inter-Racing Team driver, a solid driver in his Aston Martin, only a second mind at the finish. Then we will have Elliot Court coming on home. It's not a podium today, but my goodness, is he getting close to one for DDK with Racestat Bot, as we do see just in front there one of our drivers in the club class coming through. I believe that's Rob Gregg for 6th place in club. Well done to him for Michelin Racing Club. Raz Harper rounds on the top 5. It's a double top 5 for DDK with Racestat Bot. Then it's Cole Roy. He makes it the win today, and the trend of Scottish winners in the Interclass continues. And well, the Access Simworks driver was able to hold on. Bobby Moss comes home second in the Interclass. His best result of the season for the SimRacing Collective Esports. There's Ashley Coutland, but is it Katonen? Is it Jared Love? It's going to be Villa Katonen who takes the final podium spot in the Interclass. He redeems himself ahead of Love, who did a brilliant recovery drive. There'll be Charlie Walker in 11th place, but meanwhile we've got a few more places to come as Brad Pickett across the line, and here's Steve Hughes, but look behind, there's Adam Lynch. He's still keeping Plöger behind. They're still fighting all the way to the finish here, these two, as we do see Brad Pickett parked up. He's finished his race. Sam Hockley does the same there, the privateer we didn't really get a chance to talk about today. And then Ross Young comes across line in 15th place behind Dwayne Hoffman, who's a lap down, but then Steve Hughes went to line. And for the three-wheeler race from a UK SimRacing driver, it's a win, but it's such an important win for him. Or is it? Hold up. Well, the timing tower jumps up and down. It is a win for Steve Hughes. My apologies, as somebody's laid down a lot of smoke there going in towards turn number 1. I think they're spinning up the tyres. And then we can see Adam Lynch does hold on for second place in club ahead of Denny Ploger. And that will be your top 3. Ploger didn't quite have it in the end. Jack Giles was 3 seconds behind in 4th place in club. And then we saw Mikhail Avasek 20th ahead of Daniel Page, 21st. And then your last lead that finisher was Martin Kenyon, who took 9th in the interclass. My goodness, ladies and gentlemen, what an end to the race. It was absolutely tantalisingly close for both what was your podium finishes in the interclass as it was in the club class. But in the end, what a race. And well, as we do run out of replay tape there, we're in perfect time. We don't get to look at the scenic view, but what we do get to do is take a look at those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And here they are as we do bring them up on screen. And as we can see, after an absolutely brilliant race here today, I mean, fantastic action all the way through. And Milton Tomlinson-Dennis for Samantha Tan Racing taking that win for STR, and inconquerable today, understandably, by what was the best part of 12 seconds over Richard Simnor. Simnor not having an answer to the Samantha Tan Racing car, but definitely had his own answers to where he could finish on the podium, and he delivered it today. Some would say he did benefit, considering with a degree of luck, given the difficulties of some drivers in this class, particularly for Brandon Dye, who got it all wrong after his pit stop. But you've got to be smooth. We said that at the start. This is a circuit that will test your consistency and your ability to make sure you don't put a foot wrong, and that's what Richard Simnor's all about, as he does take that second place there for DCW Racing Blue. He was only 1.2 seconds ahead of Ben Woodgate, who rounded off the podium there for Inter Racing Team. And then we did see Elliot Court in 4th place there for DDK with RaceStatBot.com. And well, it was a double top 5 of the team because Raz Harper was just behind. Carl Roy took 6th there, your Inter winner for Axis Sport with Simworks, and in the end pulled off the strategy that was needed to beat Villa Kotonen, and in the end had the pace to make sure that Bobby Moss could not catch up, even though Moss was looking to be the quicker driver as the race went on. But Roy proved that he'd been holding back some of his own pace to match the SimRacing Collective Esports run-up in the interclass. From Moss in 7th, it was Ashley Coupland in 8th, and then the Relentless Racing drive followed up by Villa Kotonen, who round off the inter-podium there. But what a battle between him and Jared Love to the finish, and the Beowulf Racing Team driver just holding on. Behind the DDK with RaceStatBot.com driver, and what a recovery drive for him. Remember, Jared Love started on pole in the interclass. He fell all the way to the back of the field on the open lap and made his way back into the top 10. That is an incredible recovery drive. It may not feel it, in the fact he just missed out on the podium. When he looks back on it this season, I think it's going to be one of his highlights straight away. Charlie Walker, best dressed and 11th place there for Relentless Racing, ahead of his teammate of Bradley Setters. But in the battle of the Brads, it was Setters who outpaced Pickett in the end, and Pickett finished in 13th place for Clark St. James with DXT. It was 2 seconds further back to Sam Hockley, who in the end wasn't quite on the pace there of Pickett's Ferrari, but he was able to stay within reach, and the Aston Martin driver, the privateer, then ahead of Ross Young. It was Young who completed the top 15 for Clark St. James with DXT, ahead of Steve Hughes, who was your club winner for three-wheeler racing with UK Sim Racing. And well, your club winner there ahead of Adam Lynch by the best part of 2 seconds. And Lynch holding off Denny Ploger to the finish there with the NJK Sim Racing driver rounding off the club podium. Jack Giles took 4th in class, 19th overall for Euro Titans Endurance, ahead of Mikhail Abasek for Inox Motorsports. And outside that top 20 in 21st place, we did see none other than Daniel Page with Daniel Newman Racing Red. Martin Kenyon completed your run of lead lap finishes in 22nd for Clark St. James with DXT. And then we did see a lap down. Stephen Kershaw, the first of many, Arno Prague with difficulties with strategy today, holding back after that absolutely epic battle with Martin Brandon. And he was ahead of Rob Gregg with Ashley Shucksmith, Eddie Theobald, Martin Brandon, and James Fraser and Dwayne Hoffman completing a top 30. And commiserations to Dwayne Hoffman, who was looking potentially for a top 10, if not a top 5 finish in the club class, but I believe an incident midway through the race just held him back a little bit for FTVM. But still, he was ahead of Sean Clark, who was your last lap down finisher, and it was 2 laps down to Max Dean, as it was to Jordan Butler and Christopher Petty, and Adam Smith 3 laps down there with that late retirement as a result of the damage to the car after his contact with Martin Brandon from 2nd place in Inter. Brandon Dye was also on the retiree list, retiring after his incident coming out of Arabiata 1 after his pit stop, and he was ahead of Nils Pakaga, who we didn't quite see what happened to the German driver, sadly. Stuart Cardozo there, 38th as listed, but a retiree ahead of Mark Collicott and Philip Harris, and we also did see retirements for David Bigdyke, Nicholas Carlson, Tom Weston, also Ollie Smith, Andy Jones, and Corey Price, with both of your back drivers there in the pro class, both coming to wounds and misery on that open lap, particularly for the Cat Machine from DCW Racing of Andy Jones, that ended up in the barrier very early on and in an altercation with several cars. But coming to your class finishing positions, we start with Pro, of course, and this is where all the points are made and paid. And we saw Milton Tomlinson-Dennis making it 3 wins in a row. A phenomenal run so far, and here today, really proving he seems to be in control. And I'm going to put it out there, he now presents himself as your early favourite in the Pro Championship. But of course, we've got plenty of rounds to go, but he is definitely looking to be king so far. Richard Simnott, a valiant drive to second place there in the end, and having started a bit further behind, started in 6th place, gradually making his way forward and showing it's not about the one lap that matters, it's about the entire race. The GT3 Racing Blue drive was able to outpace Ben Woodgate, who took his own podium there. The InterRacing team drive putting on a solid performance, but knowing there's more to be done if he wants to be runner-up, if not take the wins. Elliott Court, 4th there ahead of Raz Harper, the 2 DDK with race StatBot teammates, not quite on the pace of the top 3, but definitely well clear of the rest of the field, with Ash Cooten there in 6th place, relentless race, and ahead of his teammates of Charlie Walker and Bradley Setters. We then did see 9th place go to Daniel Page, although he had a very frustrating race with several big incidents, but still finished on the lead lap, having to fight his way past other class drives for the majority of it. And Brandon Dyer ran off the top 10 there for Altitude Frame Esports, albeit the first of the retirees, and therefore I believe will not score any points. Niels Bakarget finished in 11th as a retiree, and then Shibut Cardozo, Andy Jones, and Corey Price all added themselves to the retiree list. Then coming to the interclass. And as we did see here, it was a win for Kyle Roy. And the theme of Scottish winners in the interclass continues, but a different Scottish winner today. It was not Jared Love, it was Kyle Roy for Axis Sport with SimWorks, who put it all together. And in the end, what a drive from him. 4.7 seconds ahead of Bobby Moss and the SimRacing Collective Esports driver, making sure that today he would be on the podium and did it through strategy and smarts. Bale for Racing Team's Villa Katona will be kicking himself for throwing away an opportunity to take the win with that mistake towards the end of the race and almost missed out on the podium there following a second error, but still Jared Love could not find a way to get past in the end, and the Ford driver had to settle for 4th, his first non-podium finish and his first non-win of the season. But still, given how the race started and that recovery drive, a 4th place there definitely will be a drop score so far, but I think when the season is all finished, he'll be thinking that actually that's going to be a performance that could definitely be key to a championship crown. Still, the DDK with race StatBot driver was 10 seconds ahead of Brad Pickett. The Clark St. James with DXT driver ended up fighting more pros than inter drives today, but he was able to steer clear of Sam Hockley by 2 seconds at the finish line. Ross Young took 7th for Clark St. James with DXT ahead of Mikhail Abasek, with the Inox Motorsport driver had a frustrating day at the office, but not quite as frustrating perhaps as Martin Kenyon's day for Clark St. James with DXT, and it was a lap down at the finish for Stephen Kershaw in 10th place. 3 laps down with the retirement, he will be classified as a finisher because he completed sufficient race distance. Adam Smith there. Commiserations to the Euro Titans endurance driver, who seemed set for a podium, but it all went so very wrong right towards the very end, and we did see non-finishes and no points being paid to Mark Collicott, Derek Biggerdike, Nicholas Carlson, and Thomas Weston. Then to the club class we go, and here in club, what we got to see was that Steve Hughes put it all together for three-wheeler racing with UK Sim Racing, and in the end, absolutely delivering a brilliant performance to take that win, and sneaking away on strategy and pace as time went on, and getting the jump on Adam Lynch in the pit lane. Lynch then had to settle for second, 2 seconds behind, but made sure that Denny Plugger could not catch up, and Jack Giles was only a further 3 seconds behind the MJK Sim Racing driver. And to be fair, the Euro Titans endurance driver, if he had worked out a little bit differently and perhaps he qualified a little bit stronger, he could have won the race just as much as any of the 3 drivers in front of him. It really did come down to fine margins. But speaking of fine margins, we would be asking that same question: could Arno Pragda have won the race if the undercut strategy had worked out? Because it worked out for his teammate of Denny Plugger, but it didn't work out for him, and in the end he spent so long having to battle his way past Martin Brandon and the MJK Sim Racing driver, in classified as a lap down, but 5th place in the club class. And today, it's going to feel as though it's been a very underwhelming race as a result in terms of how hard he had to work for those points. Rob Gregg was a lap down, but 6th place, went under the radar for the most part, but the Michelin's Racing Club driver, making sure he took some valuable points ahead of Ashley Shucksmith and Eddie Theobald. And it's crazy to think the Theobald's car, minus its front bumper and also its bonnet for the majority of the first stint, will somehow, the priority of bringing home the 8th place, and credit where it's due to him. It goes to show you that he really is more than the sum of his own parts. Martin Brandon, 9th there for Axis Sport with SimWorks, may not be the most points, but definitely gave us plenty of entertainment today in the Audi R8, and James Fraser completed that top 10 there for Moonshiners Racing Club. Dwayne Hoffman, 11th there with some good battling early on for Full Tilt Virtual Motorsport ahead of Sean Clark for Clark St. James with DXT, and it was 2 laps down to Max Dean and Jordan Butler and Christopher Petty, and then we did see retirements for Philip Harris and sadly for Ollie Smith. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the race results, and with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid here at SimRacing International and get involved in plenty of racing action that we do have going on a weekly basis, well, the best place to go for all the racing action is our official Discord. An invite link available on the screen there, as you can see at the very bottom. And indeed, where you're an esports professional, all the way through to what is a rookie racer. We're open to anybody who wants to be on the grid, so long as you want to enjoy the racing and have a fair and competitive spirit. That's what we're all about here at SimRacing International. And if you do join the community, you can potentially get on the grid for one of the following series. We do, of course, have our Thursday evening GT3 Championship, which you've been tuning into, where it's a post-round broadcast of the Superstar split from round number 3 today, and that runs every Thursday. We are in Season 12, our Masters and Superstars. Alternatively, if you do like the GT class, but you want to go for something that's a little bit more extreme, well, of course, you can go to the Grand Touring Endurance category, the GTEs from 1999 through to 2023, and we have our second season at Championship currently underway on Friday evenings. But if you're more of a weekend racer, of course, we do have the Sunday evening UK Sim Racing Sunday Showdown, the GT3 Championship in its 18th season there, or if you're looking for something far more casual, and perhaps you're just looking for something to build up your speed and build up your confidence in league racing, well, of course, we do have our Practice League with free races per week, and you can race on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So there's something for everyone here at Sim Racing International, and we'd love to see you become a part of it. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carmate, More Than Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, we must give a shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to consider what's beyond Mugello today. And of course, we'll be making our way to the Fuji International Speedway in only a couple of days' time, because we'll be live from circuit side in Japan to continue the story of the Superstar split in Season 12 of the Thursday GT3 Championship, and save the date in your diaries, because on Thursday the 23rd of April 2026, get the rain ponchos out, get those umbrellas out there. We're not quite going back to the time of James Hunt and Nicky Lauda with those conditions, but we're definitely going to be going to a Fuji circuit that's going to be slippery, it's going to be challenging, and with its array of technical corners, plus also its long start finish straight, anything is possible until the checkered flag. But heading into that round, winning the Pro Class 3 wins out of 3, it is the story of MTD, Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, who is running away with proceedings. Can anybody slow him down? In the Interclass, we have seen the dominance of Jared Love broken, but Scotland is definitely the country you want to be from if you want to win in the Interclass, with Carl Roy nabbing his own win, and therefore it'll bring them all close together at the very top. And meanwhile, in the club class, Steve Hughes adds his name to the winners list now, and he'll be hoping he can carry on that theme as he roars his way forward into the next round. But how will it all go down at Fuji? You have to tune in live on Thursday to find out. But until then, we have been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.